Long before cities, before written language, and before most of the structures we associate with civilization, the human body had already developed a quiet and unusual ability. Our eyes can produce tears not only to protect themselves from dust or irritation, but in response to something invisible, a memory, a loss, a feeling that becomes too heavy to hold inside. Among animals, distress is usually expressed through sound, movement, or visible physical signals. Yet humans often respond differently. We become still, our voices soften, and water gathers in the eyes. From a purely biological perspective, this response appears strange. Tears do not help us escape danger, defend territory, or compete for resources. In some situations, they may even reveal vulnerability, and yet this behavior appears across cultures, across history, and across nearly every human society that has been observed. If natural selection tends to preserve traits that support survival, why did our species keep this one? Why humans are the only animals that cry from emotion? Long before writing, long before cities, and long before most of the structures that define modern civilization, the human body already carried a quiet biological ability that seems unusual in the animal world. The eyes of humans are capable of producing tears in response to something that cannot be touched or seen directly. A memory, a feeling of loss, a moment of deep relief, or a sense of connection with another person can cause water to gather slowly in the eyes and flow down the face. This kind of reaction appears simple, but when viewed from a biological perspective, it raises an interesting question about the human species and its long history. Eyes in most animals produce liquid for practical reasons. The surface of the eye must remain moist to function properly. Dust, wind, and tiny particles in the air can irritate the eye, and tears help wash those particles away. This basic protective function is shared across many species. The eyes of mammals, birds, and other animals all rely on similar processes to maintain clarity and protect delicate tissue. From this point of view, tears are simply part of the maintenance system of the eye. They protect vision and help the animal continue interacting with its environment. Yet humans produce another kind of tear that does not seem to serve this simple mechanical purpose. Emotional tears appear in moments that are not directly connected to dust, injury, or physical irritation. They may appear during sadness, grief, overwhelming relief, or even during moments of strong joy. The biological systems that regulate these responses involve parts of the brain associated with emotion, memory, and social awareness. Signals from these areas can activate the glands that produce tears, allowing emotion to appear physically on the surface of the face. This connection between inner experience and visible water in the eyes is widely observed across human societies. People from many cultures, speaking different languages and living in very different environments, still show similar responses when emotion becomes intense. From a purely survival-based perspective, however, the existence of emotional tears is not immediately obvious. In the animal world, distress signals often serve a clear and direct purpose. A loud cry may warn others of danger. A defensive posture may discourage a predator or rival. Rapid movement allows escape from immediate threats. Many animal signals are fast, visible, and designed to influence the behavior of others within seconds. Emotional tears are different. They often appear when the individual is not facing immediate physical danger. They do not make the body faster, stronger, or more capable of defending itself. In some situations, they may even blur vision temporarily. For a species shaped by long periods of environmental uncertainty, where survival often depended on alertness and physical ability, such a response might seem unnecessary. Yet the presence of emotional tears in humans is not rare or occasional. It is a consistent and recognizable part of human life. Infants begin to cry very early, and as the human brain develops, tears become connected not only with physical discomfort but also with emotional states. Adults continue to show the same response across many different social contexts. This suggests that the ability did not appear randomly. Instead, it likely emerged gradually during the long evolutionary history of the human species, in environments where survival depended not only on individual strength but also on relationships between members of small groups. For most of human existence, people lived in small communities spread across landscapes that could be unpredictable and sometimes harsh. Cooperation within these groups was essential. Individuals relied on one another for protection, food sharing, and the care of children. Within such groups, subtle signals about emotional states could have played an important role in maintaining social balance. A visible sign that someone was distressed, overwhelmed, or in need of comfort might influence how others responded. The presence of tears on the face could signal vulnerability without the need for loud alarm or aggressive movement. Over long periods of time, such signals may have become part of the complex system of human social communication. Understanding this possibility requires looking closely at both the biology of the human eye and the long social history of our species. The human eye is unusually expressive compared with the eyes of many animals. The white portion surrounding the colored iris is clearly visible, making changes in the eye easier for others to notice. When tears form, they alter the brightness and clarity of the eye, creating a visible cue that can be recognized quickly by another person standing nearby. This small physical change may have had social meaning in early human groups where individuals spent much of their lives in close proximity. When we begin to examine emotional tears from this wider perspective, the behavior becomes less mysterious and more connected to the deep social nature of the human species. Rather than being a simple biological accident, tears may represent one small part of the long evolutionary process that shaped humans into a species deeply dependent on cooperation, awareness of others, and shared emotional experience. The question that remains is how this unusual signal developed over time, and why it became a stable part of human life while other animals followed different paths of expressing distress. When we look more closely at the biology of the eye, the presence of tears begins to appear less mysterious, though still unusual in the context of emotional life. The surface of the human eye is delicate tissue that must remain moist and clear in order to function properly. A thin layer of fluid spreads across the eye each time we blink. This fluid contains water, small amounts of oil, and substances produced by glands around the eye that help protect against irritation and infection. Without this constant moisture, the surface of the eye would quickly become dry and vision would become uncomfortable or even painful. In this sense, the production of tears is not unusual at all. It is part of a biological system shared widely across the animal world. Mammals, birds, and many other animals possess glands that produce fluid to protect their eyes. This protective moisture can increase when the eye encounters dust, wind, smoke, or other irritants. In such moments, the eye produces a greater flow of tears in order to wash the surface clean. These are sometimes described as reflex tears, and they serve a clear and direct purpose. They protect vision and maintain the health of the eye. Humans share this system with many other species. When someone cuts an onion or walks through strong wind, the eyes may water automatically. This reaction does not require thought or emotional experience. It is a reflex that helps the body maintain the delicate balance necessary for clear sight. Yet the human body also produces tears under circumstances that do not involve irritation or physical injury. In these moments, the glands around the eye respond to signals that originate much deeper in the brain. Emotional experiences can activate areas of the nervous system that influence breathing, heart rate, facial muscles, and the glands that produce tears. As these signals travel through the body, the eyes begin to fill with moisture even though the surface of the eye itself has not been disturbed by dust or wind. This connection between emotional experience and tear production appears to involve parts of the brain that process feelings and social awareness. These regions are associated with memory, emotional evaluation, and the recognition of other people's expressions. When emotion becomes intense, signals from these areas can travel through networks of nerves that influence the tear glands. The result is a visible physical response that reflects an internal state. What is important here is not only that this response exists, but that it appears consistently in human beings across many different environments. People raised in different cultures, speaking different languages and living under very different conditions, still produce emotional tears in recognizable ways. Children begin to show this response as their emotional world becomes more complex, and adults continue to experience it throughout life. In this sense, emotional tears appear to be part of a common human pattern rather than a learned cultural habit. When scientists study emotional expression in animals, they do observe behaviors that resemble grief, distress, or strong social attachment. Many mammals display visible reactions when separated from companions or when facing danger. Vocal calls, changes in posture, and shifts in activity levels can communicate these states to others nearby. These signals often play important roles within animal groups. They may help maintain social bonds or alert others to potential threats. Yet even among animals that show complex social lives, visible emotional tears similar to those seen in humans are rarely reported. This difference does not necessarily mean that animals lack emotion. Rather, it suggests that different species have evolved different systems for expressing internal states. Some rely on vocal signals, others on scent or body posture, and others on changes in movement or behavior. The human species appears to have developed a particularly visible set of facial signals, and tears may be part of that system. The human face contains many muscles capable of producing subtle changes in expression. These muscles allow shifts in the eyes, eyebrows, mouth, and cheeks that can communicate emotional information with remarkable precision. Tears may amplify these signals by drawing attention to the eyes, which are already one of the most important focal points in human social interaction. In early human communities, where individuals often lived in close proximity and depended heavily on cooperation, the ability to notice small changes in another person's expression could have been valuable. The presence of tears might have signaled emotional states that required attention, care, or support from others within the group. From this perspective, emotional tears can be seen not simply as a biological reaction, but as part of a broader system, connecting the human body with the social environments in which our species evolved. To understand how this system emerged, it becomes necessary to step further back in time and consider the conditions under which early humans lived. To understand why emotional tears might have become part of human life, it helps to step further back into the conditions under which our species gradually formed. For most of human existence, people did not live in large cities or organized states. Instead, they lived in small groups that moved through landscapes where survival depended on attention, cooperation, and awareness of others. These groups were often composed of families and close social partners who relied on one another for food, protection, and the care of children. Within such environments, communication was not limited to spoken language. Long before complex language developed, early humans likely depended on a wide range of signals to understand the emotional states of others nearby. Facial expressions, posture, tone of voice, and small shifts in behavior could all provide important information about what another person was experiencing. In close communities where individuals interacted constantly, the ability to recognize subtle signals could influence how the group responded to distress, illness, or loss. The human face appears particularly suited for this kind of communication. Compared with many other animals, the human face contains a high number of muscles capable of producing nuanced expressions. Small movements around the eyes and mouth can change the meaning of a facial expression in ways that other humans can interpret quickly. The eyes themselves occupy a central role in this system. Humans tend to focus on the eyes when trying to understand the feelings or intentions of another person. The visible white area surrounding the colored iris makes the direction and condition of the eyes easier to observe. When moisture gathers there, the change becomes noticeable even at a short distance. This small visual shift may have become meaningful in the social environments where humans evolved. Emotional tears do not appear suddenly without context. They often occur during moments when the individual is already showing other emotional signals. The voice may soften, breathing may change, and facial muscles may tighten or relax in particular ways. Tears add another visible layer to this pattern. They draw attention to the eyes, which already function as one of the most important sources of emotional information in human interaction. In small groups where individuals live together for long periods of time, these signals may have helped others understand when someone was experiencing difficulty, grief, or overwhelming emotion. The ability to recognize such states could influence how people behave toward one another. A person showing visible distress might receive comfort, assistance, or protection from others nearby. Over time, patterns like this may have reinforced social bonds that were essential for survival in unpredictable environments. Archaeological research cannot directly reveal whether early humans cried in response to emotion, because such behaviors do not leave physical traces in the ground. However, other forms of evidence suggest that emotional awareness and social care have deep roots in human history. Fossil remains and archaeological sites show signs that injured or vulnerable individuals were sometimes supported by others in their community. Some skeletons reveal healed injuries that would have made independent survival difficult. implying that companions may have provided assistance during recovery. These findings suggest that early human groups were capable of sustained care and cooperation. Emotional signals, including facial expressions and perhaps tears, may have played a role in maintaining these relationships. When individuals could recognize distress in others, they had opportunities to respond with support. Over long stretches of time, behaviors that strengthened cooperation could have helped groups remain stable even in difficult environments. It is important to remember that the development of such behaviors likely occurred gradually. Human evolution unfolded over many thousands of generations, with small changes accumulating slowly. The ability to express emotion visibly through the eyes may have been one small piece of a much larger transformation that shaped humans into a species deeply oriented towards social connection. By the time early human communities spread across diverse landscapes, the face had already become a powerful instrument of communication. Tears may have joined this system as a quiet signal that revealed emotional states without the need for loud calls or dramatic movement. In calm moments within small groups, where people sat close together around shared tasks or shared fires, such signals might have been easily noticed. Over time, they became part of the ordinary rhythm of human life. Understanding this possibility does not require assuming that early humans thought about tears in the same way people do today. Instead, it invites us to consider how the human body and human social life developed together over long periods of time. The presence of emotional tears may reflect not weakness, but the deep biological connection between human emotion and the cooperative environments in which our species evolved. Across the animal world, signs of distress and emotion appear in many forms. Mammals vocalize when separated from their young, birds call loudly when threatened, and social animals often display visible changes in posture or movement when tension spreads through a group. These signals help others understand what is happening in the immediate environment. A sudden call can alert companions to danger, while a change in body position may communicate submission, fear, or readiness to defend territory. In this sense, emotional expression is not unique to humans. Many animals show clear behavioral reactions when they experience stress, discomfort, or separation from others. Observers who spend time studying social animals often notice that emotional states can travel through a group. When one animal becomes alarmed, others nearby may respond within seconds. Yet the ways these signals appear are usually closely tied to survival in the moment. Loud calls carry across distance, strong body movements are visible even in dim light, and scent signals can linger in the environment after the animal has moved away. These forms of communication are shaped by the environments in which animals live. Species that depend on quick reactions often rely on signals that spread rapidly and clearly through space. When we look at the animal world from this perspective, the absence of visible, emotional tears becomes easier to understand. Tears would not necessarily function well as a long-distance signal in open landscapes or dense forests. A thin line of moisture gathering in the eye is subtle and quiet. It is not designed to travel far or to warn distant members of a group about immediate danger. Instead, it becomes noticeable mainly at close range, when two individuals can see each other's faces clearly. Many animals do not rely heavily on detailed facial observation during communication. In numerous species, the eyes themselves are partially hidden by fur, feathers, or darker pigmentation that reduces the visibility of small changes. Their communication systems emphasize sound, scent, or body movement rather than delicate visual signals. Even among social mammals with complex relationships, emotional states are often expressed through behavior rather than visible changes in the eyes. Young animals separated from their mothers may vocalize loudly, and adults may pace, freeze, or show changes in posture that indicate distress. These responses are effective within the ecological settings where those species evolved. For animals that must react quickly to predators or environmental threats, signals that move rapidly through space are often more useful than signals that require close attention to subtle facial details. The human species followed a somewhat different path. Over long stretches of evolutionary time, our ancestors developed communication systems that relied heavily on the face. The direction of the eyes, the movement of the eyebrows, and the shape of the mouth became important sources of social information. This form of communication works best when individuals spend time near one another, sharing space and observing each other's expressions. For most of human history, this was exactly the environment in which people lived. Small groups often remained within sight of one another during daily activities such as gathering food, preparing tools, or caring for children. In such settings, quiet visual signals could carry meaning without the need for loud sound or large physical gestures. The absence of emotional tears in other animals does not mean that animals lack emotional depth. Instead, it suggests that emotional communication evolved differently across species. Each species developed signals that matched its environment, body structure, and patterns of social life. Some animals rely on powerful vocal calls that echo through forests or grasslands. Others depend on scent signals that linger in the air or on the ground. Humans appear to have added another layer to emotional communication, subtle signals on the face that can be recognized at close distance. Tears may represent one element within this broader visual language of human emotion. Understanding this difference requires examining how human social life gradually shifted toward environments where close observation of faces became common. When individuals spend long periods near one another, small visual cues can become meaningful in ways that would not occur in species that communicate primarily through sound or scent. Over time, such cues may become integrated into the emotional life of the species itself. The human tendency to watch the eyes of others carefully suggests that the eyes became a central point of social attention during our evolutionary history. If this was the case, even small changes in the appearance of the eye, such as the presence of tears, could become part of the emotional signals shared within human communities. When scientists observe animals that live in complex social groups, they often notice behaviors that suggest emotional awareness and attachment. Many mammals respond strongly when separated from companions, especially between parents and offspring. Young animals may call repeatedly when their caregiver moves away, and adults sometimes search or vocalize when members of their group disappear. These reactions indicate that emotional bonds are not unique to humans. They appear across many species that depend on cooperation or long-term social relationships. Yet the way these emotional states become visible differs greatly from species to species. In animals such as wolves, elephants, or certain primates, distress often appears through sound, movement, or changes in social behavior. Vocal calls can travel through forests or open landscapes, allowing distant group members to recognize that something unusual has occurred. Body posture may also change. An animal experiencing stress may hold its body differently, move restlessly, or remain unusually still. These signals are effective because they match the sensory systems and environments of those species. Many animals rely strongly on hearing or smell to interpret the emotional states of others. Humans, however, rely heavily on vision when reading social cues. The human brain devotes significant attention to recognizing faces and interpreting expressions. This ability appears very early in life. Even young infants show interest in faces and quickly begin learning to distinguish subtle differences in expression. Over time, the human brain becomes highly skilled at detecting small changes around the eyes, mouth, and eyebrows. These changes can communicate a wide range of emotional states, from concern and sadness to reassurance and relief. Because human communication often occurs at close distance, visual signals can be surprisingly detailed. Two people standing near one another can observe shifts in breathing, small movements in the muscles of the face, and changes in the eyes themselves. In this environment, signals do not need to travel across long distances. They only need to be visible within the shared space of a small group. For most of human history, daily life unfolded within such close social settings. Early human communities likely spent long periods of time together while moving across landscapes, preparing food, building shelters, or sitting around shared fires at night. In these situations, individuals could easily observe one another's faces. The eyes, in particular, may have become one of the most important sources of social information. Humans tend to look directly at the eyes of others when trying to understand what they are feeling or thinking. This habit is reflected in many forms of human interaction. During conversation, people frequently shift their attention toward the eyes of the person speaking. Even in quiet moments, brief glances can reveal whether someone appears calm, uncertain, or distressed. This constant attention to the eyes means that small visual changes may carry meaning that would be invisible or irrelevant in many other species. Tears fit naturally into this visual environment. A thin layer of moisture in the eye can alter how light reflects from its surface. The eye may appear brighter and the moisture may gather along the lower eyelid before slowly moving down the face. These changes are subtle but noticeable to another person nearby. In environments where individuals often sit or stand within a few steps of one another, such signals can be detected easily without the need for sound or dramatic movement. The quiet nature of tears may be particularly suited to social situations that do not involve immediate danger. Loud calls or sudden gestures can disrupt group activity or attract unwanted attention in uncertain landscapes. A silent signal that communicates distress or emotional intensity may allow others to respond calmly rather than react with alarm. Over time, such signals could have become part of the social language that shaped human relationships. The absence of emotional tears in other animals may therefore reflect differences in how species interpret the faces of those around them. Many animals simply do not rely on the same level of visual attention to the eyes when communicating. Their social signals are expressed through channels that are better suited to their sensory abilities and ecological environments. Humans, by contrast, evolved within social systems where observing the face, especially the eyes, became an essential skill for understanding others. Within that environment, even the smallest visible signals could acquire meaning as part of everyday social life. As human communities continued to develop over long periods of time, the importance of recognizing subtle signals in others may have become deeply woven into everyday life. Survival did not depend only on reacting to predators or finding food. It also depended on maintaining stable relationships within the group. Members of early human communities often relied on each other for cooperation in tasks that could not easily be done alone. Sharing resources, caring for children, and responding to illness or injury required attention to the needs of others. In such settings, the ability to notice when another person was distressed could influence how the group responded. Emotional signals that were quiet and visible at close distance may have allowed individuals to communicate internal states without disrupting the wider group. If someone showed signs of sadness, exhaustion, or grief, the response from others could take many forms. Companions might move closer, offer assistance with tasks, or simply remain nearby in silence. Over time, these small interactions may have strengthened the bonds that allowed groups to remain stable through periods of difficulty. Many anthropologists studying traditional human communities have noted that social life often unfolds through continuous observation of others' expressions and behavior. People become skilled at reading the emotional tone of the group. A change in one person's mood can influence the atmosphere of an entire gathering. When distress becomes visible, others often adjust their behavior accordingly. This pattern suggests that emotional signals are not only personal reactions, but also part of the social fabric that connects individuals. Within this system, the face remains a central point of attention. Human beings naturally orient toward faces during interaction. Even in situations where language is present, much information is conveyed through facial expression rather than words alone. A brief glance, a softening of the eyes, or a tightening of the mouth can alter the meaning of spoken language. Tears may add another layer to this communication. Because they appear gradually and often accompany other changes in expression, they can reinforce the emotional message already being conveyed by the face. The quiet nature of tears may also shape how others respond. Unlike loud vocal signals, tears do not immediately trigger alarm across a group. Instead, they invite closer attention. A person noticing tears in another's eyes may lean forward, lower their voice, or pause to understand what has happened. This slower, quieter form of communication may encourage responses based on care rather than urgency. In environments where maintaining trust within the group was essential, signals that promoted calm support rather than panic could have been valuable. Archaeological evidence cannot capture these moment-to-moment interactions directly, but it does provide clues about the cooperative nature of early human societies. Excavations at ancient sites sometimes reveal individuals who survived serious injuries or illnesses that would have made independent living difficult. The healing visible in their bones suggests that they were supported by others for extended periods of time. This pattern indicates that care and cooperation were present in many early human communities. Emotional awareness likely played a role in maintaining such support systems. Recognizing when someone needed assistance would have been essential for responding effectively. Over many generations, humans may have become increasingly sensitive to the emotional states of those around them. The brain's ability to interpret facial expressions, body posture, and vocal tone appears to have expanded alongside the complexity of human social life. Within this broader system, the eyes remained one of the most powerful indicators of emotion. When tears appear there, they draw attention immediately, even if no words are spoken. This suggests that emotional tears may function less as a direct survival tool and more as a signal embedded within the social environment of the human species. In the close social spaces where early humans lived, even subtle cues could influence how individuals interacted with one another. Over time, signals that encouraged empathy, patience, and mutual support may have contributed to the stability of human groups moving through uncertain landscapes. Rather than standing apart from the rest of the animal world, emotional tears may reflect a particular path that human communication followed as social life grew more intricate. The next step in understanding this path involves examining how the human face itself gradually became one of the most expressive communication systems found in nature. The human face carries an unusual capacity for expression when, compared with the faces of most other animals, muscles beneath the skin allow small and precise movements that can alter how the face appears in subtle ways. A slight shift around the mouth, a tightening near the eyes, or a brief movement of the eyebrows can change the meaning of an expression almost instantly. These movements often occur without deliberate intention, and other people nearby can recognize them quickly. Over time, humans appear to have become highly skilled at interpreting these small signals. When people meet one another, attention often moves naturally toward the face. Even in quiet conversation, individuals frequently watch the expressions of others while they speak or listen. This tendency suggests that the human face functions as a central channel through which emotional information flows. Among all parts of the face, the eyes hold a particularly important role. Humans tend to look toward the eyes when trying to understand the emotional state of another person. A glance toward the eyes can reveal whether someone appears calm, uncertain, attentive, or troubled. The structure of the human eye may support this kind of communication. The white area surrounding the colored iris is clearly visible, making it easier for others to observe the direction of gaze and subtle changes in the surface of the eye. In many other animals, this area is darker or partially hidden, which reduces the visibility of small shifts in the eye. The human eye therefore stands out as an especially noticeable feature during interaction. This visibility may have gradually shaped the way humans communicate with one another. If individuals often focus on the eyes while interacting, small changes there can carry meaning within the social environment. When the eyes widen slightly, when they narrow, or when moisture gathers at their edges, these changes may be detected by others nearby. Because humans often interact within close physical distance, such signals do not need to travel far to be noticed. In small communities where people spent long hours together, these visual cues could become familiar parts of everyday life. Anthropologists who study human behavior frequently describe how much information is conveyed through facial expression alone. Even when language is present, expressions can guide how words are interpreted. A sentence spoken with a relaxed face may feel reassuring, while the same sentence spoken with tense eyes may suggest worry or uncertainty. This ability to interpret expressions appears across cultures, suggesting that the human brain has developed specialized processes for recognizing faces and reading emotional signals. Infants begin to show sensitivity to faces within the first months of life. They track eye movements, respond to smiling expressions, and gradually learn to interpret the emotional tone of those who care for them. As children grow, they continue refining this ability through constant social interaction. By adulthood, most people can detect subtle emotional cues in another person's face almost instantly. This skill is so familiar that it often operates without conscious effort. Within this system of visual communication, the eyes remain a focal point. People frequently describe the eyes as revealing something about what a person is feeling inside. While such descriptions are often poetic, they reflect a real pattern in human attention. The eye contains reflective surfaces that change with moisture, light, and movement. When tears begin to form, the surface of the eye becomes brighter and more reflective. The moisture may collect along the lower eyelid before slowly moving down the skin of the face. These changes draw attention naturally because the eyes already occupy such a central place in human interaction. From a broader evolutionary perspective, the development of expressive faces may be connected to the social environments in which humans lived. For most of our species' history, individuals interacted repeatedly with the same companions over long periods of time. Recognizing the emotional states of others helped maintain cooperation within these groups. Subtle visual signals could guide behavior without the need for loud sounds or sudden movements that might disrupt the group. The face became one of the most efficient ways to transmit this information. Emotional tiers may have emerged within this system as an additional signal associated with strong internal states. Their visibility in the eyes makes them difficult to ignore once they appear. When another person notices them, attention often shifts immediately toward the individual experiencing the emotion. In this way, the eyes may function not only as organs of vision, but also as windows through which emotional experience becomes visible to others nearby. Understanding how this expressive system formed requires exploring how human social life gradually shaped both the body and the mind of our species over long stretches of time. Human attention to faces did not appear suddenly. It likely developed slowly as social life became more complex during the long history of our species. Early humans lived in environments where individuals interacted repeatedly with the same small group of companions. Over time, these repeated interactions created a social landscape where recognizing the emotional state of others could influence cooperation and stability within the group. When people share tasks such as gathering food, preparing tools, or caring for children, small changes in mood or well-being may affect how the group functions. In such settings, the face becomes an efficient place to display and detect information about those changes. The muscles of the human face are capable of producing a wide range of expressions, many of which are subtle and short-lived. These expressions often appear automatically when emotion arises. A tightening around the eyes may accompany worry or concentration, while relaxation of facial muscles may signal comfort or trust. Because these movements happen quickly and often without deliberate control, they can reveal emotional states before words are spoken. Over long periods of time, the human brain appears to have adapted to recognize these signals with increasing sensitivity. Studies of human perception show that people can identify emotional expressions from brief glimpses of the face, sometimes within fractions of a second. This ability suggests that recognizing facial cues has become deeply integrated into human cognition. The eyes play a particularly important role in this system. Humans frequently follow the gaze of others to understand where attention is directed. When someone looks toward an object, nearby individuals often shift their own gaze in the same direction. This shared attention can help coordinate group activity, allowing people to respond to events in their surroundings without the need for spoken instructions. The visibility of the human eye supports this process. The contrast between the darker iris and the surrounding white area makes the direction of gaze easier to detect. In social situations where people stand or sit close together, even slight changes in the eyes may become noticeable. Moisture gathering in the eye is one of these changes. Because the eye reflects light differently when tears begin to form, the presence of moisture may subtly alter its appearance. In ordinary conversation or quiet interaction, this change may draw attention without requiring any sound or gesture. For the person observing, it can signal that something important is happening within the emotional world of the other individual. The response to such signals often involves a shift in behavior. People may soften their voice, pause their activity, or move closer to the person who appears distressed. These reactions suggest that the human social environment is shaped by continuous feedback between emotional expression and social response. When someone's emotional state becomes visible, others adjust their behavior in ways that may restore balance within the group. Over long stretches of human history, this process may have contributed to the stability of small communities living in uncertain landscapes. Emotional signals helped individuals understand when cooperation, patience, or support were needed. The ability to read such signals likely became a valuable social skill. Anthropologists often note that even in modern societies, people remain highly sensitive to the emotional expressions of others. Conversations frequently depend as much on facial cues as on spoken language. A person may sense hesitation, concern, or reassurance simply by observing the eyes of the person speaking. This pattern suggests that the human face continues to function as a primary channel for emotional communication. Within this channel, tears may serve as a particularly visible marker of strong feeling. Their appearance can transform the expression of the face by drawing attention directly to the eyes. The quiet nature of this signal may encourage a response that is calm rather than alarmed. In this way, tears may fit naturally within the broader system of facial communication that evolved alongside human social life. Understanding how this system developed requires looking not only at the face, but also at the internal biological processes that connect emotion, the brain, and the glands that produce tears. If the human face gradually became a center of emotional communication, it is also important to consider how this visible system connects with the internal biology of the body. Emotions are not only abstract experiences, they involve complex networks within the brain that influence breathing, heart rhythm, muscle tension, and many other physical processes. When a person experiences sadness, relief, or overwhelming empathy, signals move through these networks and produce changes that can be observed externally. The face is one of the places where these internal changes become most visible. Muscles around the eyes and mouth respond to signals from regions of the brain involved in emotional processing. These regions interact with parts of the nervous system that regulate bodily responses. As a result, emotional experience can alter facial expression almost instantly. The movement may be small, but the shift is often enough for another person to notice that something has changed. Over long periods of evolutionary history, the ability to interpret such changes likely became increasingly important within human communities. When individuals can recognize the emotional states of others, they can adjust their behavior in ways that maintain cooperation. A person who appears distressed might receive assistance, patience, or attention from companions nearby. This pattern suggests that emotional expression is not simply a personal reaction, but part of the social environment that allows groups to function smoothly. Tears appear within this broader system of emotional signaling. The glands that produce tears are connected to nerves that respond to signals originating in emotional centers of the brain. When emotion becomes intense, these signals can activate the tear glands, allowing moisture to gather in the eyes. This process does not require conscious decision. It occurs automatically, reflecting the close relationship between emotional experience and physical response. In this sense, tears can be understood as one visible outcome of the connection between the brain and the body. The eyes, already central to human attention during interaction, become the location where this connection appears. As moisture gathers along the surface of the eye, it changes the way light reflects there. Another person observing the face may notice the brightness of the eye or the thin line of moisture forming along the eyelid. Because people naturally focus on the eyes during conversation or shared activity, these changes can be recognized quickly. In the close social spaces where humans often interact, such signals do not need to be exaggerated to be understood. Their quiet presence may be enough to shift the emotional atmosphere between individuals. Over generations, the link between emotional experience and visible expression may have strengthened through repeated social interactions. When one person's emotional state becomes visible, others respond. Those responses, in turn, influence the emotional state of the individual who expressed distress. This cycle of expression and response creates a feedback system within human social life. Emotional tears may participate in this cycle by signaling moments when emotional intensity has reached a point that invites recognition from others. Archaeological evidence cannot record the presence of tears themselves, but the cooperative nature of early human societies suggests that emotional communication played a role in maintaining group stability. Fossil remains indicating long-term care for injured individuals show that humans were capable of responding to the vulnerability of others. Such responses require some awareness that another person is suffering or struggling. Visible emotional signals, including those expressed through the face and eyes, may have contributed to this awareness. Over time, the human body and the human social environment likely shaped each other in subtle ways. As communities depended more heavily on cooperation and shared understanding, the ability to express and interpret emotional signals may have become increasingly refined. The face evolved into a powerful communication surface, and the eyes became its focal point. Tears, appearing quietly in that space, may represent one of the ways the internal emotional world of the human brain becomes visible to others. The next step in understanding this phenomenon is to look more closely at how emotional processing itself developed in the human brain, and how those internal processes came to influence visible expression inside the human brain. Emotional experience emerges from networks that connect several different regions rather than from a single center. These networks gradually developed over the long evolutionary history of mammals and later became more elaborate in humans. Structures deep within the brain respond to events that carry emotional meaning. Some areas help detect danger or uncertainty, while others contribute to feelings of comfort, attachment, or relief. When these regions interact, they influence many physical systems throughout the body. Heart rate may change, breathing may become slower or faster, and muscles in the face and body may tighten or relax. In this way, emotional experience is never confined only to thought. It spreads through the body as a coordinated pattern of physiological responses. Among these responses is the activation of glands that produce tears. The glands surrounding the eyes receive signals through branches of the nervous system that connect emotional processing with physical reactions. When certain emotional states become strong enough, these signals can trigger the release of tears even though the surface of the eye itself has not been irritated. This connection reveals that emotional tears are not an isolated feature of the eye, but part of a wider biological system linking emotion, the brain, and bodily expression. The development of such systems likely occurred gradually as mammals evolved increasingly complex social lives. Many mammals depend on cooperation between parents and offspring for survival during early development. Young animals must communicate their needs clearly enough that caregivers respond. Vocal calls are one common solution to this challenge, but emotional signals can also appear through facial expressions and body posture. As brain structures involved in emotion expanded and became more interconnected, the range of emotional responses expressed through the body may also have increased. In humans, this process appears to have reached an especially elaborate form. The human brain contains extensive networks devoted to recognizing faces and interpreting emotional expressions. These networks allow individuals to notice small changes in the appearance of another person's eyes, mouth, or posture. At the same time, internal emotional experiences continue to influence the body through automatic pathways. When someone feels overwhelmed by sadness, empathy, or relief, signals from emotional centers of the brain travel through the nervous system and alter physical processes throughout the body. Breathing may slow, the voice may become unsteady, and the muscles of the face may shift in recognizable ways. Tears appear as part of this broader pattern. Their emergence does not require conscious intention. Instead, they arise when emotional signals within the brain reach a level that activates the tear glands. Because this reaction is automatic, it often occurs even when a person would prefer not to display their emotions openly. In social situations, this involuntary quality can make tears a particularly convincing signal to others. Observers may interpret them as a genuine reflection of internal experience rather than a deliberate performance. This characteristic may have played an important role in the social environments where humans evolved. In small groups where individuals depended on cooperation, signals that reliably indicated emotional states could help guide social responses. If someone's distress was visible in ways that were difficult to imitate artificially, companions might be more likely to respond with attention or care. Over many generations, the connection between emotional processing in the brain and visible expression on the face may have become increasingly refined. The eye, already a focal point of human attention, provided a natural place for such signals to appear. When moisture gathered there, it changed the appearance of the face in a way that others could notice quickly. In this sense, emotional tears may represent the visible edge of a much deeper biological process unfolding within the brain and body. Understanding that process requires exploring how emotional systems themselves developed as humans became a species that depended strongly on long-term relationships and shared social life. Emotional responses in the human body do not arise in isolation. They are part of a network that connects perception, memory, and social awareness. When a person encounters an event that carries emotional meaning, several regions of the brain begin to interact. Some areas help evaluate what is happening in the environment, while others recall past experiences that may resemble the present moment. These processes allow the brain to interpret whether a situation is comforting, threatening, or deeply meaningful in a social sense. Once the brain forms this interpretation, signals spread through the nervous system and begin to shape physical reactions throughout the body. Breathing may slow or become uneven, the muscles of the face may tighten or relax, and the rhythm of the heart may shift. These changes often occur automatically, without deliberate thought. They represent the body's way of preparing for or responding to the emotional significance of the moment. In humans, emotional responses frequently involve awareness of other people. The presence, absence, or condition of companions can strongly influence how the brain evaluates a situation. For example, feelings of grief often arise when someone recognizes the loss of an important relationship. Relief may appear when danger has passed and trusted companions remain nearby. These experiences illustrate how emotional systems are closely connected to the social environment in which humans live. Over long periods of evolutionary history, humans became increasingly dependent on cooperation within small groups. Survival often required individuals to coordinate their behavior with others while sharing resources and information. Emotional signals may have helped guide this coordination. When someone experienced distress or vulnerability, visible expressions of emotion could influence how others responded. The brain systems that produce emotional reactions, therefore, became intertwined with systems that detect and interpret social signals. Within this complex network, tears represent one visible outcome of emotional processing. The glands that produce tears respond to signals carried through branches of the nervous system connected to emotional centers of the brain. When emotional intensity reaches a certain threshold, these signals can activate the glands and allow tears to form. This response is not simply a mechanical reflex. It reflects the integration of emotional evaluation, bodily regulation, and visible expression. In many situations, tears appear when emotional experiences become difficult to contain within internal awareness alone. The body responds by releasing part of that emotional tension through physical expression. Because the eyes occupy such a central place in human interaction, the presence of tears becomes visible almost immediately to those nearby. This visibility allows emotional states that might otherwise remain private to become part of the shared social space. When another person notices tears, the response may involve subtle adjustments in behavior. A conversation may slow, voices may become softer, and attention may shift toward the individual experiencing the emotion. These reactions illustrate how emotional expression and social response are linked through continuous feedback. The brain interprets emotional signals from others, generates its own responses, and adjusts behavior accordingly. This process occurs repeatedly in human social life, shaping interactions from childhood through adulthood. Emotional tears may therefore function as one element within a broader system of communication between internal emotional states and the surrounding social environment. They do not replace other forms of expression such as speech, posture, or tone of voice. Instead, they complement these signals by providing a visible sign that emotional intensity has reached a level that invites recognition. In the environments where humans evolved, such recognition may have encouraged cooperation, empathy, and mutual support within small groups facing uncertain conditions. Over time, the biological pathways connecting emotion, the brain, and the tear glands may have become integrated into the ordinary rhythm of human life. The presence of tears during moments of deep emotion reflects not only the workings of the eye, but also the long history of social interaction that shaped the human nervous system. To understand this history more clearly, it becomes necessary to examine how emotional life itself expanded as human communities developed increasingly complex relationships with one another. As emotional systems in the human brain became more closely connected with social awareness, the expression of feeling through the body may have gained new importance in everyday life. Emotional responses do not only reflect what is happening in the environment, they also influence how individuals relate to one another within a community. In species where cooperation plays a central role in survival, the ability to sense and respond to the emotional states of others can affect the stability of the entire group. For humans, this sensitivity appears to have grown alongside the gradual expansion of social complexity. Small groups of early humans often lived in close proximity for extended periods of time. Members of the group shared resources, watched over children, and responded collectively to environmental challenges. Within such settings, understanding the internal state of another person could guide how others behaved. When someone appeared anxious, exhausted, or deeply saddened, companions might alter their actions in subtle ways that reduced tension or provided support. The human brain seems particularly well suited to detect these signals, Networks involved in emotional processing interact with regions that recognize faces and interpret expressions. This interaction allows individuals not only to feel emotions internally, but also to observe and interpret emotional states in others. When someone nearby displays visible signs of distress, observers often experience changes in their own emotional state as well. This shared response can create a form of emotional alignment within the group, where individuals become aware of one another's internal experiences without needing extensive verbal explanation. Tears may participate in this alignment by making emotional intensity visible in a way that draws attention. Because the eyes already serve as a focal point in human interaction, moisture gathering there can become difficult to overlook. When tears appear, they often alter the expression of the entire face. The muscles around the eyes shift slightly, and the reflective surface of the eye changes as moisture spreads across it. Another person observing these changes may quickly recognize that the emotional state of the individual has shifted. This recognition can influence how the observer responds. Instead of continuing ordinary conversation or activity, attention may shift toward the person whose emotions have become visible. Such moments illustrate how emotional expression can shape the direction of social interaction. Over time, repeated experiences of this kind may have strengthened the connection between emotional signals and social response. When individuals learn that visible expressions of distress brought attention or comfort from others, these signals may have become integrated into the broader system of human communication. The biological pathways that link emotional processing with tear production could therefore be seen as part of a much larger pattern connecting the human brain, the body, and the social environment. Archaeological research suggests that cooperation and care have deep roots in human history. Fossil evidence sometimes reveals individuals who survived injuries or physical conditions that would have made independent survival extremely difficult. The healing present in their bones indicates that they likely received assistance from others during recovery. These findings suggest that early human communities were capable of recognizing vulnerability and responding with sustained care. Emotional awareness may have played an important role in enabling such responses. Signals that revealed when someone was overwhelmed or suffering could have helped companions decide when to provide help. While tears themselves do not leave traces in the archaeological record, the broader patterns of human cooperation hint at the kinds of social environments in which emotional signals may have mattered. Within close communities where individuals spent much of their lives together, small changes in facial expression could carry meaning that shaped behavior. Tears may have emerged within this context as a quiet but visible signal linking internal emotion with external recognition. By the time humans spread across many different regions of the world, this connection between emotional experience and visible expression may already have been firmly established. Understanding how these emotional systems expanded further requires exploring the role of human social life and group living in shaping the development of empathy and shared emotional awareness. For most of human history, people lived in groups that were small enough for everyone to recognize one another individually. These communities often moved together through landscapes that could be difficult to predict. Food sources changed with the seasons, weather patterns shifted, and the safety of the group depended on cooperation among its members. In such environments, survival rarely depended on the strength of a single individual. Instead, it depended on how well the group could work together over long periods of time. Members of early human communities shared responsibilities in ways that helped maintain stability. Some individuals gathered plant foods, others tracked animals, and many tasks required coordinated effort. Children needed protection and care for many years before they could contribute fully to the group. Older individuals often carried knowledge about the environment that younger members had not yet learned. Within this social structure, the well-being of one person could influence the well-being of many others. Because of this interdependence, awareness of the emotional states of companions may have been especially important. When someone experienced distress, fatigue, or grief, those internal experiences could affect how they participated in daily activities. A person who was overwhelmed might struggle to focus on tasks that required attention. If others within the group recognized these changes early, they might adjust their expectations or offer assistance. Over time, such responses could help maintain the balance that allowed the community to continue functioning. Communication within these groups did not depend entirely on spoken language. Language likely developed gradually, and even when it was present, much information could be conveyed through posture, gesture, and facial expression. The human face provided a rich surface for these signals. Small changes around the eyes or mouth could reveal emotional states that might otherwise remain hidden. When individuals spent long hours near one another, these signals became part of the quiet background of social life. The eyes, in particular, played a central role in this communication. Humans naturally focus on the eyes of others when interpreting emotion or intention. This habit may have emerged because the eyes provide reliable information about attention and internal state. When someone is alert or concerned, their gaze shifts in recognizable ways. When they are calm or reflective, the muscles around the eyes relax. These signals can be detected quickly by others nearby. Tears appear within this visual environment as one more layer of emotional information. When moisture gathers in the eyes, it alters the expression of the face in ways that can be recognized even without words. In a small group where individuals share close physical space, the presence of tears may become immediately noticeable. Because such groups often depended on mutual support, this visible signal could influence how others respond. Companions might pause their activity, speak more gently, or offer comfort through presence or touch. The quiet nature of tears may have been particularly suited to environments where loud signals were not always desirable. In uncertain landscapes where attention to surroundings was essential, sudden vocal displays could draw unwanted notice from predators or rival groups. A silent expression of emotion allowed individuals to communicate internal states without disturbing the broader environment. This form of communication could unfold gradually, within the shared space of the group, where others were already attentive to the faces of those around them. Anthropological observations of traditional societies often reveal how deeply social awareness is woven into daily life. Individuals pay close attention to subtle cues from others, adjusting their behavior in ways that maintain harmony within the group. While these patterns vary across cultures, the ability to recognize emotional signals appears consistently across human populations. Tears, when they appear, may function as part of this wider system of social awareness. They represent a moment when emotion becomes visible in a way that invites recognition from others nearby. Over many generations, the human body and the social environments in which people lived likely influenced each other in subtle ways. As communities depended more strongly on cooperation, signals that helped individuals recognize vulnerability or distress may have gained importance. Tears, appearing quietly in the eyes, may have become one of the ways the internal emotional world of the individual connected with the shared life of the group. Life within early human groups required constant awareness of the needs and conditions of others. Members of the community did not live as isolated individuals. Their daily survival often depended on how well they understood one another and how quickly they could respond when circumstances changed. Food might be scarce during certain seasons, and physical injuries or illness could affect a person's ability to contribute to shared tasks. In such situations, the well-being of one individual could influence the stability of the entire group. Because of this interdependence, small signals indicating distress or vulnerability may have carried significant social meaning. When someone struggled with exhaustion, grief, or emotional strain, these internal states could affect how they interacted with others. If companions were able to notice these changes early, they might adapt their behavior in ways that reduced tension or provided assistance. Over time, this sensitivity to emotional signals may have helped maintain cooperation within groups that depended on mutual support. Emotional expressions on the face likely played an important role in this process. The human face can convey a wide range of internal states through small movements in the muscles around the eyes and mouth. These movements often occur automatically and can be recognized by others without the need for spoken explanation. When individuals spend long periods in close proximity, as early humans likely did, these subtle signals become part of everyday communication. A shift in expression may signal concern, fatigue, or sadness even before words are spoken. Tears may have appeared within this system as a particularly visible form of emotional expression. When moisture gathers in the eyes, the change draws attention naturally because people tend to look toward the eyes during interaction. The reflective surface of the eye becomes brighter, and the presence of tears may alter the expression of the face in ways that are difficult to ignore. In a small community where individuals frequently observe one another's faces, such changes could quickly become meaningful signals. These signals may not have been interpreted consciously in the way modern observers might describe them. Instead, they likely formed part of a pattern of responses learned through repeated social experience. When one person displayed visible distress, others may have approached more carefully or offered quiet support. Such responses could help restore emotional balance within the group and maintain cooperation during challenging circumstances. The slow pace of many daily activities in early human communities may have made this form of communication especially effective. People often worked together in shared spaces while preparing food, crafting tools, or maintaining shelters. These tasks allowed for constant visual contact between individuals. Under such conditions, small changes in expression could be noticed easily without interrupting ongoing activity. A person experiencing strong emotion might not need to speak immediately. The visible presence of tears could signal that attention or understanding was needed. Anthropological studies of human interaction often emphasize how much communication occurs through observation rather than speech. Even in societies with rich spoken languages, people rely heavily on facial cues and body posture to interpret emotional states. This reliance suggests that visual communication has deep roots in human history. Tears may represent one part of this long tradition of expressing internal experience through visible signals on the face. The significance of these signals may have been reinforced by the shared challenges faced by early human communities. Environmental uncertainty, changing food sources, and the need for cooperation during migration or resource gathering required individuals to remain attentive to one another. Emotional awareness could help groups remain flexible and supportive when difficulties arose. Within such environments, signals that revealed emotional strain might encourage patience, empathy, or collective problem-solving. Over time, patterns of emotional expression and response may have become woven into the social fabric of human life. The presence of tears in moments of strong feeling could act as a quiet invitation for recognition and understanding. Rather than serving as a direct tool for survival in the physical sense, emotional tears may have supported the social systems that allowed humans to endure unpredictable environments together. Understanding this connection between emotion and cooperation helps reveal how deeply human biology is linked with the social worlds in which our species evolved. Within small human communities, emotional awareness did not function as a dramatic event that appeared only during moments of crisis. Instead, it likely formed part of the quiet background of daily life. People observed one another while sharing tasks, traveling across landscapes, or resting together during calm moments. In such environments, attention to the faces of others became an ordinary habit. Over time, individuals may have developed a natural sensitivity to small signals that revealed how their companions were feeling. These signals did not always require words. A shift in posture, a change in tone of voice, or a brief movement in the muscles around the eyes could suggest that someone was experiencing discomfort or emotional strain. Because members of the group often relied on one another repeatedly over long periods, recognizing these signals could influence how relationships developed. Someone who appeared troubled might receive patience or assistance from others nearby. These responses could help maintain trust within the group and encourage cooperation in future interactions. Tears may have played a role in this subtle network of signals. When moisture gathers in the eyes, it changes the appearance of the face in a way that draws attention naturally. The reflective surface of the eye becomes brighter, and the presence of moisture may make the gaze appear softer or less steady. In close social settings, these changes can be noticed easily by another person looking toward the face. Because humans tend to focus on the eyes when interpreting emotion, even small alterations in the eye can carry meaning. The quiet nature of tears may also shape the kind of response they invite. Loud signals, such as shouting or abrupt movement, can trigger immediate reactions across a group, sometimes creating tension or alarm. Tears, by contrast, tend to appear gradually and silently. Their presence often encourages a slower form of response. Someone noticing tears in another's eyes may pause before speaking, lower their voice, or simply remain nearby without interrupting the moment. This calmer pattern of interaction may help maintain emotional balance within the group rather than amplifying stress. Over time, repeated experiences like these could strengthen the connection between emotional expression and supportive behavior. When individuals learn that visible signs of distress lead to understanding rather than rejection, trust within the group may deepen. Such trust would have been valuable in early human communities where survival depended on cooperation over many years. Children, in particular, may have been especially sensitive to these signals. Human childhood lasts far longer than that of most animals, and young individuals depend on caregivers for protection and learning during this extended period. The ability to communicate emotional states clearly could influence how caregivers respond. Tears often appear early in life as part of a child's expression of discomfort or need. As emotional development continues, these signals may become associated not only with physical discomfort, but also with more complex emotional experiences. Within a supportive social environment, caregivers and companions learn to recognize these signals and respond in ways that help the child regulate emotion and regain calm. Anthropological observations of human societies often reveal that emotional expression and social response are closely linked. When one person experiences grief or distress, others may gather quietly, offering presence rather than immediate solutions. These moments illustrate how emotional signals can guide collective behavior within a community. Tears may become a focal point in such moments because they provide a visible indication that someone's emotional state has shifted significantly. The presence of tears does not solve a problem directly, but it may influence how others approach the situation. By inviting attention and empathy, emotional tears may support the cooperative bonds that have long characterized human life. Over generations, these patterns of expression and response may have become deeply embedded within human culture and biology alike. Understanding how this system functions requires looking further into how empathy itself developed as a central feature of human social life. Among the many abilities that shape human social life, one of the most remarkable is the capacity to sense and respond to the emotional states of others. This ability is often described as empathy, though it does not always appear in dramatic ways. Much of the time it operates quietly. A person may notice tension in another's face, hear a subtle change in tone of voice, or sense hesitation in a familiar pattern of behavior. These small observations can influence how individuals respond to one another, even when no words are spoken. The development of this sensitivity likely occurred gradually during the long history of human communities. For early humans living in small groups, recognizing the emotional condition of companions could affect how tasks were organized and how conflicts were resolved. If someone appeared exhausted or distressed, others might adjust their expectations or provide assistance. Over time, this kind of awareness may have contributed to maintaining stability within groups that depended on cooperation for survival. The human brain appears particularly well adapted for detecting emotional signals. Regions involved in interpreting facial expressions and body language interact closely with areas that generate emotional responses within the observer. When a person sees another individual showing signs of sadness or distress, similar emotional patterns may begin to form within the observer's own nervous system. This shared response can create a sense of connection between individuals, allowing them to understand each other's internal experiences more directly. Within this process, the eyes often serve as a central point of attention. Humans instinctively look toward the eyes of others when attempting to interpret emotional meaning. The direction of gaze, the tension of muscles surrounding the eye, and the brightness of the eye itself can all contribute to how an expression is understood. Because tears gather in this highly visible area, they may play a role in guiding the observer's attention toward the emotional state of the person experiencing them. When someone notices tears in another person's eyes, the reaction is often immediate yet calm. Rather than producing alarm, the sight of tears frequently leads to quiet attentiveness. Conversations may pause, voices may soften, and individuals may shift closer together. This pattern suggests that tears can function as a signal inviting recognition and empathy rather than urgency or defense. In the environments where early human groups lived, such signals may have helped coordinate supportive behavior without creating unnecessary disturbance. Emotional tears may therefore be understood as part of a larger system that connects emotional awareness with social response. They do not act alone. Instead, they appear alongside other signals such as changes in facial expression, posture, or tone of voice. Together, these signals form a network through which individuals communicate internal experiences to those around them. Because human communities often relied on long-term cooperation, this network of signals may have become an important element in maintaining trust and understanding within the group. Anthropological observations suggest that many human societies place value on recognizing and responding to the emotions of others. Even when cultural rules influence how openly emotions are displayed, people remain attentive to subtle cues that reveal internal states. A person who notices another's distress may offer quiet companionship or assistance, reinforcing the bonds that hold the community together. Tears, when they appear, can become a visible focus of this attention. They mark a moment when emotion has become strong enough to move from the internal world of the individual into the shared awareness of the group. Over many generations, the connection between emotional expression and empathetic response may have helped shape the cooperative nature of human societies. Understanding how this capacity for empathy developed further requires examining the conditions of early human life, where survival often depended not only on individual skill but also on the willingness of companions to respond to one another's needs. Empathy does not appear suddenly in human life as a single ability that emerges fully formed. Instead, it develops gradually through many layers of social experience. From early childhood onward, humans learn to interpret the emotional signals of others through repeated interaction. A child watches the expressions of caregivers, notices shifts in tone or posture, and begins to associate those signals with particular emotional states. Over time, the brain becomes increasingly skilled at linking external cues with internal understanding. This learning process suggests that empathy is both biological and social. The brain provides the capacity to detect emotional signals, while social life provides the environment in which those signals gain meaning. Within this environment, the human face becomes one of the most important sources of information. Small changes in the face can signal emotions long before they are explained with words. The eyes often attract the most attention because they reveal where a person's focus lies and how their emotional state may be shifting. A steady gaze may indicate calm attention, while a sudden shift or narrowing of the eyes can suggest concern or discomfort. When tears appear, they intensify this signal. Moisture in the eyes changes the brightness of the surface and may cause the gaze to appear less steady or more reflective. Because people naturally look toward the eyes when interpreting emotion, the presence of tears may amplify the emotional message already carried by the face. The observer does not need a detailed explanation to sense that something significant is being experienced. In many cases, this recognition occurs quickly and without deliberate reasoning. The brain processes facial cues through specialized networks that respond almost instantly to emotional expressions. When someone observes another person's distress, similar emotional circuits may become active within the observer. This process allows individuals to experience a form of shared emotional awareness. Instead of remaining distant from another person's feelings, the observer senses a reflection of those feelings within their own internal state. This shared awareness can influence how people behave toward one another. A person who notices distress in another may feel motivated to offer reassurance or support. Even simple actions, such as speaking gently or remaining present during a difficult moment, may reflect the influence of empathy. Over time, repeated experiences of this kind can strengthen the bonds between individuals and reinforce the cooperative structures within human communities. Tears may therefore function as one of the signals that help trigger this empathetic response. When tears appear, they often indicate that emotional intensity has reached a level that cannot easily remain hidden. Because the signal is visible in the eyes, it draws attention directly to the emotional experience of the individual. Observers may respond not because they have been instructed to do so, but because the sight of tears naturally invites concern or reflection. Anthropologists studying human interaction often observe that emotional expression and empathetic response form a cycle. When one person reveals vulnerability, others respond with attention or care. This response can reduce tension and restore emotional balance within the group. Over time, such cycles may help maintain trust among individuals who depend on one another. In small communities where survival required cooperation, the ability to recognize and respond to vulnerability may have played a meaningful role in maintaining social stability. Emotional tears fit within this cycle as a visible sign that emotional experience has become difficult to contain internally. Their presence does not demand immediate action, but it encourages awareness and reflection. When others notice them, the moment often becomes quieter and more attentive. This shift in atmosphere may create space for empathy to emerge naturally within the interaction. The connection between emotional expression and empathetic response suggests that tears are not simply a biological reaction. They may represent one point where internal emotional life intersects with the social environment that surrounds it. Understanding how this intersection shaped human communities requires looking further into how shared emotional experiences influence the development of social bonds across generations. When empathy begins to operate within a group, it gradually shapes how individuals relate to one another over long periods of time. Emotional awareness becomes more than a momentary reaction. It becomes part of the pattern through which relationships form, stabilize, and continue across generations. Humans appear especially sensitive to signs that another person is experiencing difficulty or vulnerability. These signs may appear through changes in posture, tone of voice, or the expression of the face. Because people often look directly at the eyes when interpreting emotion, signals that appear there can carry particular weight in human interaction. Tears may become one of the most recognizable forms of such signals. When they appear, they do not simply reveal an internal emotional state. They also influence how the surrounding social environment responds. A person who notices tears in another's eyes may instinctively slow their movements, soften their voice, or pause an ongoing activity. These changes are often small, but they reflect a shift in attention toward the emotional condition of the individual. Within small human communities, such shifts could help regulate social tension and maintain cooperation. If someone felt overwhelmed or distressed, the recognition of that state by others could prevent misunderstandings or conflict. Companions might offer patience or assistance rather than interpreting the person's behavior as withdrawal or hostility. In this way, emotional awareness supported by visible signals could guide the group toward responses that preserved harmony. Tears may have contributed to this process by marking moments when emotional intensity became difficult to conceal. Their presence in the eyes draws attention immediately because humans are naturally inclined to observe the gaze of others. When moisture gathers there, the reflective surface of the eye changes and the surrounding muscles of the face shift slightly. Even without spoken explanation, these changes can suggest that the individual is experiencing something significant internally. The observer may not know the exact cause of the emotion, but the visible signal invites a more careful response. Over time, repeated experiences of this kind may have reinforced social bonds within human groups. When individuals learned that vulnerability would be met with understanding rather than rejection, trust between companions could deepen. Such trust would have been valuable in environments where cooperation over long periods was necessary for survival. Sharing resources, caring for children, and responding to environmental challenges all required relationships that extended beyond immediate self-interest. Anthropological studies often describe how emotional signals contribute to maintaining these relationships. In many societies, moments of grief or distress are not experienced entirely in isolation. Instead, they become occasions where others gather quietly, offering presence rather than immediate solutions. These gatherings reflect the human tendency to respond collectively when strong emotions become visible. Tears may serve as a focal point during such moments because they provide a clear indication that emotional experience has reached a visible threshold. The presence of tears does not resolve the circumstances that produced them, but it changes how the situation is approached by others. Conversations may slow, physical space between individuals may narrow, and gestures of comfort may appear. These responses illustrate how emotional expression can shape the behavior of an entire group. Over many generations, patterns like this may have contributed to the formation of strong cooperative bonds within human communities. The ability to sense vulnerability and respond with empathy allowed groups to remain cohesive even during periods of hardship. Emotional tears appearing quietly within the eyes may represent one of the signals through which this process became visible. To understand why such signals emerged in the first place, it becomes necessary to examine how human life was structured across long stretches of history, where survival often depended on shared emotional awareness within small and closely connected groups. When we look carefully at the human eye, one feature immediately stands out when compared with the eyes of most other animals. The white area surrounding the colored iris is clearly visible. This feature, known as the sclera, forms a bright contrast that makes the direction and condition of the eye easier to observe. In many other animals, the sclera is darker or partly hidden by surrounding pigmentation, which makes the eyes appear more uniform in color. As a result, Small changes in the eye are often less visible to observers. In humans, however, the bright sclera draws attention to the eye itself. Even from a short distance, another person can often tell where someone is looking or whether the eyes have shifted in a particular direction. This visibility appears to play an important role in human communication. When two people interact, their attention often moves naturally toward each other's eyes. The gaze of another person can signal curiosity, concern, or attentiveness. A brief glance can indicate agreement or hesitation without a single word being spoken. Because the sclera makes the eye more visible, these signals become easier to detect. The observer does not need to interpret the entire face to understand what is happening. The eyes alone can reveal a great deal about where attention is directed and how an individual may be feeling in that moment. This distinctive feature of the human eye may have developed gradually as social interaction became increasingly important in human life. Early human communities depended heavily on cooperation within small groups. Members of the group often shared tasks that required coordination, such as gathering resources, watching for danger, or caring for young children. In such settings, being able to follow the gaze of another person quickly could help coordinate activity. If someone looked suddenly toward a distant movement in the landscape, others could follow that gaze and become aware of the same event. Over time, this ability to read the direction of another person's gaze may have strengthened communication within the group. The eye became not only an organ of vision but also a signal indicating where attention was focused. The bright sclera made these signals easier to interpret, allowing individuals to respond to changes in attention without the need for spoken explanation. In environments where silence sometimes helped avoid drawing attention from predators or rival groups, such visual communication may have been especially valuable. Within this context, the eyes also became a place where emotional states could become visible. Because people already looked toward the eyes when interpreting attention, any change in the eye could influence how expressions were understood. When the muscles surrounding the eye tightened or relaxed, these shifts altered the emotional tone of the face. Tears appearing within this visible area would therefore be difficult to overlook. The presence of moisture changes how light reflects from the surface of the eye. The brightness of the sclera may appear different, and the moisture may gather along the edge of the eyelid before moving slowly down the face. These changes occur precisely in the area where observers are already focusing their attention. As a result, tears may amplify the emotional signal carried by the eyes. In human interaction, the eyes are often described as revealing something about a person's inner experience. While such descriptions are poetic, they reflect the real tendency of humans to read emotional information from the eye region. The combination of a visible sclera and highly expressive facial muscles allows subtle changes in emotion to become noticeable. Tears may therefore represent an extension of this visual communication system. They do not create an entirely new signal, but intensify one that is already present. When someone notices moisture gathering in another person's eyes, the recognition may occur almost immediately. This quick recognition can shift the emotional atmosphere between individuals. Attention moves toward the person experiencing the emotion, and responses may become quieter and more attentive. In this way, the structure of the human eye itself may have helped shape the way emotional signals such as tears function within human social life. The visibility of the human eye does more than simply reveal where someone is looking. It also allows observers to detect subtle changes that occur when emotional states shift. Because the sclera provides a bright background around the iris, even small differences in moisture, tension, or movement can alter the appearance of the eye. Humans have become remarkably sensitive to these differences. During conversation or shared activity, people often notice when another person's gaze becomes unsteady, when the muscles surrounding the eye tighten, or when the brightness of the eye changes slightly. These observations may occur so quickly that individuals rarely become consciously aware of them. Instead, the brain processes these signals automatically and adjusts behavior in response. In social interaction, this sensitivity helps individuals understand the emotional tone of a situation. When the eyes of another person appear relaxed and focused, the observer may interpret the interaction as calm or cooperative. When the eyes appear strained or distant, the observer may sense tension or uncertainty. Because the human brain pays close attention to the eye region, signals appearing there can influence social responses more strongly than signals elsewhere on the face. Tears emerge directly within this visual field. When moisture begins to collect along the surface of the eye, it interacts with the light reflecting from the sclera and the iris. The eye may appear brighter or more reflective, and the moisture may gather along the lower eyelid before slowly moving down the skin. These changes occur exactly where observers tend to focus their attention. As a result, tears often become visible before other forms of emotional expression fully develop. The observer may notice the first sign of moisture even while the rest of the face still appears composed. In human social environments, such early signals can influence how others respond. A person who detects the presence of tears may begin adjusting their behavior immediately. Speech may slow, gestures may become more careful, and attention may shift toward the emotional state of the individual. These responses illustrate how subtle visual signals can shape interaction without the need for explicit explanation. Within small communities where individuals share space over long periods of time, this sensitivity to eye signals may have become deeply embedded in everyday life. Members of the group learn to recognize the smallest indications of emotional change in one another, because the eye already served as a central point of communication for attention and intention. Emotional signals appearing there could easily become integrated into the existing system of visual cues. This integration may have strengthened the connection between emotional experience and social awareness. When someone's internal state changed dramatically, the eyes often revealed that change quickly. Others nearby could respond before the emotion was expressed through louder or more disruptive signals. In environments where maintaining calm cooperation was important, this quiet form of communication may have supported social stability. Anthropologists often observe that people rely heavily on eye contact when forming social connections. The direction and duration of a gaze can communicate interest, trust, hesitation, or concern. Because the sclera makes the eyes more visible than in many other animals, humans can follow these cues with remarkable accuracy. When tears appear within this already visible area, they become part of the same communication system. Rather than functioning as a separate signal, tears may amplify the emotional information already present in the eyes. This amplification may help explain why emotional tears are so easily recognized by others. Even when a person attempts to hide their feelings, the appearance of moisture in the eyes can reveal that emotion is present. Observers may not know the exact cause of the emotion, but the visible signal invites attention and interpretation. In this way, the structure of the human eye may have created conditions in which emotional tears could become meaningful within social interaction. Understanding this possibility leads to another question about the history of our species. If the eye became such an important channel for emotional communication, what kinds of social environments encouraged humans to depend so strongly on signals that could be seen rather than heard or smelled? The prominence of the human eye suggests that visual communication gradually became a central feature of human social life. Unlike many animals that depend strongly on scent or sound to convey information, humans rely heavily on what can be seen in the face of another person. This pattern appears in everyday behavior across cultures. During conversation, people frequently shift their attention toward the eyes of the person speaking. Even when individuals are not speaking directly, brief glances can reveal interest, uncertainty, or emotional tension. The ability to interpret these visual signals has become so familiar that it often operates without conscious effort. When two people sit together, much of their communication takes place silently through small changes in expression. The eyes guide this silent exchange. Their direction indicates where attention is focused, and the surrounding muscles shape the emotional tone of the face. Because the sclera remains clearly visible, even subtle movements or shifts in moisture can influence how the eye appears. Over long periods of human history, this visual sensitivity may have become deeply integrated into social interaction. Early human communities likely spent much of their time within close visual range of one another. Daily tasks such as preparing food, shaping tools, or maintaining shelters often occurred in shared spaces where individuals could observe each other easily. In these settings, communication did not always require loud signals. Quiet visual cues could carry meaning without disturbing the surrounding environment. The eyes therefore became one of the most efficient ways to transmit information about attention and emotional state. Tears appear within this system as a particularly visible form of change. When moisture gathers along the surface of the eye, it modifies the brightness and reflection that observers see. The lower eyelid may hold a thin line of liquid before gravity slowly draws it downward along the face. Because observers are already attentive to the eye region, this change rarely goes unnoticed. Even when the rest of the face remains relatively still, the appearance of tears can signal that an emotional shift has taken place. In many human interactions, this signal alters the atmosphere of the moment. A person noticing tears may pause their speech or change the tone of their voice. Others nearby may become quieter or more attentive, recognizing that the emotional state of the individual has become visible. These responses illustrate how emotional signals can guide behavior within a group without the need for explicit explanation. The process unfolds quietly through observation and response. Over generations, repeated experiences like this may have strengthened the role of the eye as a focal point for emotional communication. The structure of the eye itself, with its bright sclera and reflective surface, may have supported this development by making emotional signals easier to detect. In species where the eye is less visible, such signals might not carry the same meaning because they would be more difficult to observe. Humans, however, evolved within social environments where individuals frequently watched one another's faces. Within these environments, the eye became not only a tool for seeing the world, but also a place where emotional states could be revealed to others. Tears may therefore represent an extension of this long process. They transform the eye from a source of attention and direction into a visible indicator of emotional intensity. When tears appear, the internal experience of the individual becomes part of the shared awareness of those nearby. This transformation from private feeling to visible signal may help explain why tears occupy such a recognizable place in human emotional life. To understand why these signals became so meaningful, it is necessary to examine how emotional experiences themselves developed across the long history of human communities, and how shared emotional events shaped the relationships that allowed those communities to endure. One of the most distinctive features of human life is the unusually long period of childhood. Compared with many animals, human infants and young children remain dependent on caregivers for a much longer time. During these early years, children gradually learn how to move through the world, how to understand the behavior of others, and how to manage their own emotional experiences. This extended developmental period creates a unique environment where communication between children and caregivers becomes essential for survival and learning. From the earliest stages of life, infants communicate their needs through visible and audible signals. Crying is one of the first forms of expression that appears. At the beginning, this cry is closely linked to physical discomfort such as hunger, cold, or fatigue. Caregivers respond to these signals by providing food, warmth, or protection. Through repeated interactions like these, a pattern of communication develops between the child and those responsible for its care. Over time, emotional signals begin to expand beyond immediate physical needs. As the brain develops and social awareness grows, children start to experience a wider range of emotional states. They may feel frustration when a task becomes difficult, sadness when separated from a familiar person, or relief when comfort returns after distress. During these moments, the face becomes an important channel through which emotional states are expressed. The muscles around the eyes and mouth respond automatically to shifts in feeling, allowing caregivers to observe changes even before a child speaks. Tears appear within this developmental process as a visible signal that something within the child's emotional state has shifted. Moisture gathers in the eyes when distress becomes strong enough to activate the biological pathways connecting emotion with the tear glands. Because caregivers naturally look toward a child's face when responding to cries or other signals, the presence of tears becomes easy to notice. This visibility can guide how the caregiver responds. The adult may move closer, soften their voice, or provide physical reassurance that helps the child regain calm. In this way, emotional tears become part of the feedback loop that connects the child's internal experience with the actions of others. Each time a caregiver responds to visible distress, the child learns that emotional signals can influence the behavior of those nearby. This learning process does not require deliberate instruction, and it unfolds naturally through repeated interaction during daily life. As children grow older, their emotional experiences become more complex. They begin to recognize that others also have feelings that can be observed through facial expressions and behavior. The ability to notice sadness, concern, or joy in another person gradually becomes part of social understanding. This development suggests that emotional awareness and communication are deeply intertwined with the long period of human childhood. Because children spend many years learning how to interpret and respond to emotional signals, the social meaning of those signals becomes firmly embedded in human behavior. Tears, appearing early in life and continuing into adulthood, may therefore reflect patterns of communication established during this developmental stage. The extended childhood of humans creates an environment where emotional signals repeatedly guide interaction between individuals. Caregivers observe the child's face and eyes. The child responds to the caregiver's expressions, and both participants adjust their behavior through this ongoing exchange. Over generations, such interactions may have shaped how emotional signals function within human communities more broadly. What begins as a form of communication between child and caregiver eventually becomes part of the larger system through which adults interpret and respond to one another's emotions. Understanding this developmental foundation helps explain why emotional tears remain a recognizable part of human life across cultures and throughout history. The signals learned during childhood continue to influence how adults express vulnerability, empathy, and shared emotional experience within the communities they inhabit. As children continue to grow within the social environment of their families and communities, their emotional awareness gradually becomes more refined. During the early years of life, much of what a child learns about emotions comes not from explanations but from observation. Children watch how adults react to situations, how their voices change, how their faces move, and especially how their eyes appear when emotions become strong. Because human infants are naturally drawn to faces, the eyes become one of the first places where emotional meaning is discovered. A child looking into the face of a caregiver begins to associate certain visual patterns with particular emotional states. A relaxed gaze may signal calm and safety. A widened or tense expression around the eyes may indicate concern or urgency. Over many repeated encounters, these visual cues gradually become familiar markers that help the child interpret the emotional atmosphere around them. Tears appear within this learning environment as one of the most noticeable changes that can occur in the eye region. When moisture gathers along the eyelid or begins to flow downward, the brightness and texture of the eye shift in a way that attracts attention almost immediately. For a child who has already learned to focus on the eyes of caregivers, this signal becomes difficult to ignore. Even before language is fully developed, children can recognize that the appearance of tears corresponds with a powerful emotional moment. This recognition does not require a detailed explanation. The child senses that something meaningful has changed in the emotional state of the person they are observing. In many households, moments when tears appear are followed by visible responses from other people nearby. Adults may move closer, speak more softly, or offer gestures of reassurance such as holding a hand or placing a comforting arm around the person experiencing distress. Children who witness these responses begin to understand that emotional signals can shape the behavior of others. The presence of tears often leads to an atmosphere of attention and care, rather than indifference. Through repeated experiences like this, children gradually learn that emotional expression forms part of the social fabric of their community. These lessons extend beyond the immediate relationship between child and caregiver. As children interact with siblings, relatives, and members of the wider community, they encounter similar patterns of emotional communication. Someone may become tearful during a moment of loss, disappointment, or overwhelming relief. The surrounding people often adjust their behavior in response, creating a quiet space where the emotion can unfold without interruption. Observing such moments helps children build a deeper understanding of how emotional signals operate within human groups. By the time individuals reach adulthood, these patterns of recognition and response are already deeply established. Adults often react to tears in ways that resemble the responses they observed during childhood. Conversations may pause, voices may soften, and attention may turn toward the person experiencing the emotion. These reactions occur so naturally that they often feel automatic, yet they reflect years of social learning that began during the earliest stages of life. The long period of human childhood may therefore contribute significantly to the persistence of emotional signals such as tears. Because individuals spend many years observing how others respond to emotional expression, the meaning of those signals becomes woven into everyday interaction. Emotional tears are not simply a biological reaction produced by the body. They also function within a system of learned social understanding that connects individuals across generations. Children observe tears, learn how others respond to them, and eventually carry that understanding into their own adult relationships. In this way, the developmental journey from infancy to adulthood helps preserve the social meaning of tears within human communities. What begins as a signal of distress in early life gradually becomes a shared language of vulnerability and empathy that continues to shape human relationships throughout history. Childhood does not only shape how individuals express emotion, it also shapes how entire communities respond to visible signs of emotional experience. When a child grows up surrounded by people who notice and react to emotional signals, the child gradually absorbs these patterns as part of everyday life. Over time, this repeated exposure creates a shared understanding that certain visible changes in the face, particularly around the eyes, carry emotional meaning. Tears become one of the clearest examples of this shared understanding because they are easy to recognize and difficult to conceal once they appear. In many human societies, emotional moments that include tears often unfold in the presence of others rather than in complete isolation. A person who becomes tearful during a difficult event may be surrounded by family members, friends, or members of the wider community. The responses that follow tend to reflect patterns learned across generations. Voices grow quieter, movements become slower, and attention shifts toward the individual experiencing the emotion. These reactions suggest that tears have become integrated into the social rhythms of human life. People do not need formal instruction to know how to respond. The behavior emerges naturally from the shared expectations that develop during childhood and continue into adulthood. Anthropologists studying different cultures frequently observe that emotional expression serves as a bridge between individual experience and group awareness. When someone expresses sadness, relief, or deep gratitude, the emotion becomes visible to others who share the same social environment. Tears can function as a particularly clear signal within this process because they appear directly in the eyes, an area that people instinctively watch during conversation. The observer may not know the precise cause of the emotion, but the presence of tears indicates that something meaningful is occurring within the internal life of the person. This visible signal often invites patience and attention from those nearby. Over long stretches of human history, such responses may have helped reinforce trust within small communities. Individuals who felt safe expressing vulnerability could rely on others to recognize and respond to their emotional state. This recognition may have strengthened relationships between family members, partners, and companions who depended on one another for survival. In environments where cooperation was essential for gathering resources, caring for children, and responding to environmental challenges, the ability to share emotional experiences could help maintain social cohesion. Tears may have contributed to this process by signaling moments when emotional intensity had reached a point that others could easily perceive. Because the signal appears in the eyes, it is difficult to ignore during close interaction. The observer becomes aware that something within the emotional landscape of the group has shifted. The response that follows may be subtle but meaningful. People may pause their activities, offer quiet reassurance, or simply remain present while the emotional moment unfolds. These responses illustrate how emotional signals influence not only the individual experiencing them, but also the behavior of the surrounding group. Over generations, repeated experiences like this can create stable patterns of emotional communication. Children observe adults responding to tears with care and attention, and they carry these patterns forward into their own relationships later in life. The continuity of these responses across generations suggests that emotional tears have become embedded within the cultural practices of human communities, as well as within the biological systems of the body. Understanding this connection between childhood learning and collective behavior helps explain why emotional tears remain a recognizable feature of human life across many cultures. They reflect not only the biological capacity of the human body, but also the long history of social environments where emotional signals were noticed, interpreted, and woven into the relationships that allowed human communities to endure. Across the long history of human societies, emotional expression has often been connected to moments when individuals confront events that affect not only themselves, but also the wider group. These events may include the loss of a family member, the relief of reunion after long separation, or the quiet recognition of shared hardship. In such moments, the emotional experience of one person rarely remains entirely private. Instead, it becomes visible to others through subtle changes in posture, voice, and facial expression. Among these signals, tears hold a distinctive place because they appear directly in the eyes, a region that people instinctively observe during social interaction. Anthropologists studying traditional communities frequently notice that emotional moments are rarely handled with abrupt or dramatic gestures. Instead, they often unfold slowly in the presence of others. When someone becomes tearful, people nearby may fall silent, allowing the moment to develop without interruption. This silence is not empty. It represents a form of shared attention where the emotional state of one person becomes part of the awareness of the group. The presence of tears can guide this process by making the emotional experience visible in a clear yet quiet way. Unlike loud expressions of distress, tears can appear gradually and invite a gentle response from others. The observer may not immediately ask questions or attempt to change the situation. Instead, the group may respond with presence and patience. This pattern suggests that emotional signals have long been integrated into the rhythms of social life. In many small communities, people spend large portions of their lives within close proximity to relatives and companions. Daily activities such as preparing food, maintaining shelters, or caring for children occur within shared spaces where individuals can easily observe one another. In such environments, subtle emotional cues become part of the communication system that helps maintain harmony within the group. Tears may serve as one of these cues by marking moments when emotional experience reaches a level that becomes visible. When others notice this signal, they may adjust their behavior to accommodate the emotional state of the individual. Conversations may pause, movements may slow, and gestures of reassurance may appear. These responses help prevent emotional moments from becoming disruptive or isolating. Instead, the group collectively acknowledges that something meaningful is being experienced. This acknowledgement may help strengthen the sense of connection among individuals who share the same environment. Archaeological evidence cannot directly record emotional experiences, but anthropologists infer aspects of social life from patterns of burial, shared spaces, and cooperative activities preserved in the material record. These patterns suggest that early human groups relied heavily on strong social bonds to survive in demanding environments. Cooperation allowed individuals to share resources, protect vulnerable members, and adapt to changing conditions across long stretches of time. Emotional awareness within the group may have supported these bonds by allowing individuals to recognize when others were experiencing distress or vulnerability. Visible signals such as tears could help draw attention to these moments without the need for elaborate explanation. The ability to perceive emotional states in others may have encouraged supportive responses that strengthened relationships over time. When people felt understood and supported by their companions, the group itself became more resilient. Emotional expression, therefore, may have played a subtle but meaningful role in shaping the social environments in which humans evolved. Tears, appearing quietly in the eyes, represent one small part of this broader system. Their presence reflects the deep connection between individual emotional experience and the shared life of the community. To understand this connection more fully, it becomes important to explore how emotional signals may have influenced cooperation and trust within the groups that formed the foundation of human social existence. Human cooperation depends not only on physical coordination but also on a subtle awareness of the emotional states of others. Within small groups that share daily life, individuals constantly observe one another for signs of change in mood, attention, or well-being. These observations do not require formal discussion. They unfold through small details such as posture, tone of voice, and the expressions that appear across the face. Because the eyes naturally attract attention during conversation, changes that occur there often become the earliest signals that something within a person's internal state has shifted. Moisture forming in the eyes is one such signal. When tears begin to appear, the change may be quiet, but it alters the visual appearance of the eye enough to draw notice from those nearby. This shift can influence how the surrounding group interprets the situation. Instead of continuing an activity with the same pace or tone, people may slow their actions and become more attentive to the emotional condition of the individual. These adjustments illustrate how emotional signals guide social behavior without requiring direct instruction. In communities where individuals rely on one another over long periods of time, recognizing vulnerability becomes an important part of maintaining trust. If someone experiences distress and that state becomes visible, The response of others can determine whether the individual feels supported or isolated. Emotional signals such as tears may therefore function as a form of communication that invites recognition rather than concealment. When companions respond with patience or reassurance, the individual experiencing the emotion learns that vulnerability does not threaten their place within the group. This understanding can strengthen the bonds that hold communities together. Anthropological observations of many small-scale societies suggest that emotional expression often occurs within a shared social space rather than behind closed doors. Moments of grief, relief, or deep concern may unfold gradually in the presence of others who are already part of the individual's daily life. Tears appearing during such moments do not simply mark personal distress. They also create a visible point around which the group's attention can gather. People may not immediately attempt to explain the emotion or solve the circumstances that produced it. Instead, the group often responds through quiet forms of acknowledgement, remaining present while the emotional moment passes. These responses may appear simple, but they contribute to the stability of relationships within the community. When individuals repeatedly experience understanding from those around them, the sense of belonging within the group becomes stronger. Over many generations, patterns like this may have helped human communities maintain cooperation even during difficult periods. Environmental challenges, limited resources, and the unpredictability of natural conditions required individuals to depend on one another. Emotional awareness allowed members of the group to recognize when someone needed patience, assistance, or reassurance. Tears may have served as one of the signals that made such moments visible. Because the signal appears in the eye, it becomes noticeable precisely where observers already direct their attention. The resulting recognition encourages responses that maintain social balance rather than conflict. Through countless interactions across human history, this quiet exchange between emotional expression and empathetic response may have helped sustain the cooperative networks on which human survival depended. Emotional tears, therefore, can be understood not only as a personal experience, but also as a small part of the social mechanisms that support trust and shared responsibility within human groups. When emotional signals become visible within a group, they do more than simply reveal the inner state of one individual. They can also influence how the entire social environment adjusts in response. Human communities have long depended on subtle coordination between individuals, not only in practical activities such as gathering food or sharing shelter, but also in maintaining the emotional balance that allows people to continue cooperating over long periods of time. When tension or distress grows within a person, that change can gradually affect the atmosphere around them. If the emotional state remains hidden, others may misunderstand the behavior that follows. But when the emotional experience becomes visible through facial expression, posture, or the presence of tears, the group receives a signal that something significant is occurring internally. Tears can be particularly effective within this system because they appear directly in the eyes, a place that human observers instinctively monitor during interaction. The appearance of moisture in the eyes alters the brightness and reflective quality of the surface, creating a visual change that is difficult to overlook at close distance. Once this signal is detected, the surrounding individuals may shift their behavior in small but meaningful ways. Conversations may become quieter, movements may slow, attention may focus on the person experiencing the emotion rather than on the task that was previously underway. These changes illustrate how emotional communication can quietly regulate the pace and tone of group interaction. In many traditional societies studied by anthropologists, emotional moments often occur within the presence of others who share the same living space. Family members, companions, or neighbors may be nearby when someone experiences grief, relief, or overwhelming concern. The response from others often involves patience rather than interruption. Instead of demanding immediate explanation, people may allow the emotional moment to unfold naturally. The presence of tears can guide this process by providing a clear indication that the emotional experience has reached a visible threshold. The group does not need to analyze the situation immediately. The signal itself encourages attentiveness and restraint. Over time, repeated interactions of this kind can help build a culture of emotional recognition within a community. Individuals learn that visible vulnerability will not automatically lead to rejection or ridicule. Instead, it often leads to a quiet form of acknowledgement from others. This expectation may strengthen trust between members of the group. When people know that their emotional states can be recognized without harsh judgment, they may feel more secure within the relationships that surround them. Such security becomes especially important in small communities where cooperation determines survival. Environmental challenges, unpredictable food supplies, and the need to care for young children require individuals to depend on one another consistently. Emotional awareness helps maintain this cooperation by preventing misunderstandings that could damage relationships. Tears may function within this system as a signal that invites empathy rather than confrontation. When observers notice them, the response often shifts from evaluation to understanding. This shift allows emotional tension to be acknowledged without escalating into conflict. Over long stretches of human history, patterns like this may have contributed to the stability of social groups. Emotional signals allowed individuals to remain aware of one another's internal states, even when those states were difficult to describe with words. The quiet visibility of tears may therefore represent more than a biological reaction to emotion. It may reflect a communication pathway that connects individual experience with collective awareness. Through countless interactions across generations, this pathway could help maintain the fragile balance of trust that allowed human communities to persist and cooperate across the deep history of our species. Human emotional life did not appear suddenly in its modern form. It developed gradually as human societies grew more complex, and as individuals spent increasing amounts of time interacting closely with one another. Early humans lived in small groups where daily survival depended on cooperation. Tasks such as gathering food, protecting children, and responding to environmental changes required coordination between many individuals. Within these environments, social awareness became an important ability. People needed to recognize not only what others were doing, but also how they were feeling. The emotional state of one member of the group could influence the behavior of others and affect how the group responded to challenges. In such settings, visible emotional signals helped individuals remain aware of each other's internal experiences. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and body posture all contributed to this shared awareness. Among these signals, changes in the eye region were especially noticeable because humans naturally direct their attention toward the eyes during interaction. The eye reveals where attention is focused and often reflects subtle shifts in emotion. When tears appear, they transform this already important area of communication into a more powerful signal. Moisture gathering in the eye changes how light reflects from its surface and draws immediate attention from observers. Because this signal appears in a place where people already look, it becomes difficult to overlook during close interaction. Emotional tears may therefore have functioned as a way of making internal emotional experiences visible within the group. When someone becomes overwhelmed by grief, relief, or deep concern, the appearance of tears can signal that the emotional intensity has reached a point where others should become aware of it. This awareness allows the surrounding individuals to adjust their behavior accordingly. They may pause their activities, offer reassurance, or simply remain present while the emotional moment unfolds. These responses can help maintain the social balance within the group. Instead of allowing distress to escalate into conflict or misunderstanding, the group responds through patience and attention. Over many generations, repeated interactions like this may have strengthened the connection between emotional expression and social cooperation. Individuals who were able to recognize emotional signals in others could respond in ways that preserve trust within the group. Trust is essential in communities where individuals depend on one another for survival. When people know that their companions will respond with understanding during moments of vulnerability, the relationships within the group become more stable. Emotional signals such as tears may have contributed to this stability by revealing moments when empathy was needed. Anthropologists studying small-scale societies often observe that emotional experiences are rarely treated as purely private events. Instead, they are woven into the social life of the community. Moments of loss, reunion, or shared relief may be experienced collectively, with individuals supporting one another through quiet presence and mutual attention. Tears appearing during such moments do not simply represent personal sadness or joy. They signal that the emotional experience is significant enough to be shared within the social environment. This shared recognition strengthens the bonds between individuals who face the uncertainties of life together. Emotional tears may therefore represent one point where the inner emotional life of an individual becomes visible to the wider group. Their presence creates an opportunity for empathy and cooperation to emerge within the social interaction. Understanding this connection between emotional expression and group awareness helps illuminate how deeply human emotions are intertwined with the social environments in which our species evolved. Human communities often depend on a delicate balance between individual needs and collective stability. Each person carries private emotional experiences that can influence how they behave within the group. When these internal states remain hidden, misunderstandings may arise. Someone who feels grief, exhaustion, or quiet frustration may appear distant or uncooperative to others who cannot see the cause of the change. Over long periods of shared living, such misunderstandings could gradually weaken trust between members of a group. Emotional signals help prevent this by allowing internal experiences to become visible in subtle ways. Facial expressions, changes in voice, and shifts in posture can reveal that a person's emotional condition has altered. Among these signals, tears occupy a distinctive position because they appear in the eyes, the very place where people instinctively look when interpreting another person's attention and intention. When tears form, they modify the brightness and movement of the eye. This change draws attention almost immediately during close interaction. Observers may notice the moisture before any words are spoken. The recognition that someone is experiencing strong emotion can alter the tone of the moment. Instead of continuing an activity with the same pace or intensity, people may pause or slow down. This pause creates space where emotional tension can be acknowledged without turning into conflict or confusion. In many small human communities, these pauses form part of the natural rhythm of social life. When someone becomes tearful, others nearby may lower their voices or shift their posture toward the individual. These responses do not necessarily attempt to solve the situation immediately. Rather, they communicate that the emotional experience has been noticed. The presence of this quiet recognition can help the individual regain balance within the group. When emotional moments are acknowledged rather than ignored, the individual may feel less isolated in their experience. Over generations, patterns like this may have strengthened the ability of human communities to remain cohesive during periods of difficulty. Environmental challenges such as unpredictable weather, scarce food resources, or the need to protect children required individuals to rely heavily on one another. Emotional awareness helped maintain cooperation by allowing group members to recognize when someone needed patience or support. Tears may have functioned as one of the signals that drew attention to such moments. Because the signal appears directly in the eye, it becomes noticeable in the same visual field where attention and intention are already communicated. This placement may have allowed emotional signals to integrate easily into the existing system of human interaction. Anthropologists frequently observe that emotional expression within human groups tends to invite empathy rather than avoidance. When someone reveals vulnerability, others often respond with a form of quiet presence. This presence may involve sitting nearby, offering a gentle gesture, or simply allowing time for the emotional moment to unfold. The response does not erase the cause of the emotion, but it changes the social environment in which the emotion occurs. Instead of being faced alone, the emotional experience becomes part of the shared awareness of the group. Emotional tears, therefore, may serve as a bridge between private feeling and collective recognition. They transform an internal experience into a visible signal that others can perceive and respond to. Through countless interactions across human history, this quiet exchange between emotional expression and empathetic response may have helped sustain the trust and cooperation that allowed human societies to endure across generations. Emotional experiences do not only affect individuals in isolation. They often influence the broader environment in which people live together. Within human communities, the emotional state of one person can gradually shape the atmosphere of an entire group. A moment of joy can spread quietly through shared laughter or relaxed conversation. In a similar way, a moment of sorrow or deep concern can alter the tone of interaction among those nearby. These changes often occur without deliberate planning. Instead, they unfold through subtle signals that reveal shifts in a person's internal state. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and body posture all contribute to this process. Among these signals, tears hold a distinctive place because they appear directly in the eyes, a region that naturally attracts human attention. When moisture gathers along the surface of the eye, the brightness and reflection of the eye change slightly. These visual changes are easily noticed during close interaction, especially when individuals are already observing one another's faces. Because people instinctively monitor the eyes when interpreting emotion, the appearance of tears can quickly signal that something significant is happening internally. This signal may alter how others respond in the moment. A conversation that was moving quickly may become slower, voices may soften, and movements may become more deliberate. These small adjustments reflect the human tendency to adapt behavior when someone nearby is experiencing strong emotion. Instead of continuing with ordinary activity, the group becomes briefly attentive to the emotional state of the individual. This attentiveness does not necessarily involve dramatic action. Often it appears as quiet presence. Someone may remain nearby, offer a gentle gesture, or simply allow time for the emotional moment to pass. These responses illustrate how emotional awareness shapes the social rhythms of human life. Anthropologists who study long-standing human communities often observe that emotional expression rarely exists entirely outside the awareness of others. In environments where people share daily responsibilities and physical space, individuals remain closely attuned to the subtle changes that occur in one another's behavior. A shift in voice, a pause in movement, or the appearance of tears may signal that an emotional experience is unfolding. The surrounding group often responds not with immediate analysis, but with patience. This patience allows the emotional moment to exist without pressure or interruption. Over long periods of time, repeated interactions like this can strengthen the bonds between individuals. When people recognize that their emotional experiences will be noticed and treated with care, trust within the group becomes more stable. Emotional signals therefore play a quiet but important role in maintaining cooperation. They help individuals understand when attention, empathy, or reassurance may be needed. Tears may represent one of the clearest signals within this system because they transform an internal experience into something visible to others. When tears appear, the boundary between private feeling and shared awareness becomes thinner. The emotional moment is no longer contained entirely within one person. Instead, it becomes part of the social environment in which others can respond. This transformation may help explain why emotional tears remain a recognizable and meaningful feature of human life. They do not solve the circumstances that produced the emotion, but they create an opportunity for empathy to emerge within the group. Through countless interactions across generations, this quiet exchange between emotional expression and social recognition may have helped sustain the trust and cooperation that allowed human communities to endure across the deep history of our species. Human emotional life does not remain constant across all situations. It shifts depending on context, relationships, and the events unfolding around a person. Some emotional experiences remain quiet and internal, barely visible to others. Others grow stronger until they influence posture, voice, and facial expression. At certain moments, the emotional intensity may reach a point where the body responds through the release of tears. This response does not occur only during moments of sadness. Tears may also appear during experiences of relief, deep gratitude, or the quiet recognition that something meaningful has occurred. The variety of situations in which tears appear suggests that they are connected not to a single emotion but to moments when emotional experience becomes especially intense. From a biological perspective, emotional activity in the brain can influence the systems that regulate the body's responses. When a person experiences strong emotion, signals travel through networks that link emotional processing with physical reactions. These pathways can affect breathing, heart rate, and the activity of glands responsible for producing tears. As a result, emotional tears represent a meeting point between internal emotional experience and visible physical change. The body converts a private emotional state into a signal that others can observe. This transformation may seem unusual at first glance. Many animals experience fear, excitement, or distress, yet their emotional responses often remain hidden within internal physiological changes or outward behaviors such as movement or vocalization. Humans, however, possess facial features that make subtle emotional signals easier to observe. The muscles around the eyes are capable of producing very fine changes in expression, and the visible white of the eye allows observers to detect moisture quickly. These anatomical features create conditions where emotional tears become noticeable during close interaction. Over long stretches of human history, individuals have lived within social environments where observing one another closely was part of everyday life. Members of a group often shared space while preparing food, caring for children, or resting after daily activity. In these settings, subtle changes in expression could easily be noticed. When someone's eyes filled with tears, the signal appeared precisely where others were already directing their attention. Because of this placement, emotional tears could quickly communicate that a person's internal state had changed. The observer did not need to understand the entire situation immediately. The visible signal itself invited awareness and attention. This visibility may have allowed tears to function as a bridge between internal emotional experience and social response. When someone becomes tearful, the moment often creates a pause within interaction. Words may become fewer, and the surrounding individuals may shift their focus toward the person experiencing the emotion. These reactions suggest that tears can influence the rhythm of social life. Instead of forcing an emotional experience to remain hidden, they allow it to be acknowledged within the group. Anthropologists studying human emotional expression often note that such signals help create shared emotional understanding. When one person's internal experience becomes visible, others gain the opportunity to respond with empathy or quiet support. Over generations, repeated interactions like this may have strengthened the role of emotional expression in maintaining relationships. Tears, appearing in the eyes during moments of strong feeling, may therefore represent one of the ways the human body allows private emotional experience to become part of the shared awareness of the community. Human emotional experiences rarely follow a simple or predictable pattern. A person may feel sadness and relief at the same moment, or experience gratitude mixed with exhaustion after a long period of difficulty. These layered emotional states reflect the complexity of the human mind, which constantly processes memories, expectations, and social relationships at the same time. When emotional intensity grows strong enough, the body may respond in ways that reveal this inner complexity to others. Tears represent one of the most visible forms of this response. They do not belong to a single emotion, but often appear when several emotional processes converge at once. During moments of grief, for example, tears may accompany the recognition of loss and the memories connected to it. In moments of reunion, tears may appear when relief and affection rise suddenly after a long absence. These experiences illustrate how emotional tears are linked to transitions in a person's internal state. Something within the emotional landscape shifts from tension toward release, or from quiet endurance toward expression. The body reflects this shift through visible change in the eyes. The tear glands respond to signals from parts of the nervous system that regulate emotional activity. As moisture gathers along the lower eyelid, the reflective surface of the eye changes. The brightness of the sclera and the movement of the eyelid muscles alter slightly, producing a signal that observers can notice even before tears begin to fall down the face. Because people naturally direct their attention toward the eyes during conversation, these changes rarely remain hidden for long. The observer may recognize that the emotional atmosphere of the moment has changed. This recognition often leads to a pause in ordinary activity. Voices may soften, and the pace of interaction may slow. These responses illustrate how emotional signals influence the rhythm of social life. Instead of continuing conversation or activity with the same tone, people adapt their behavior to acknowledge that an emotional moment has emerged. Anthropologists often describe these pauses as moments of shared awareness. The emotional experience of one person becomes visible to others, allowing the group to adjust collectively. Tears therefore function not only as a biological reaction, but also as a social signal that invites recognition. The person who becomes tearful may not intend to communicate a message consciously, yet the appearance of tears makes the emotional experience difficult to conceal. Observers who notice the signal often respond through quiet forms of empathy. They may remain nearby, offer a gentle gesture, or simply allow the emotional moment to unfold without interruption. Such responses demonstrate how human communities integrate emotional expression into everyday interaction. Emotional tears do not interrupt social life completely. Instead, they redirect attention toward the emotional state of an individual for a brief period of time. Over long stretches of human history, repeated interactions like this may have helped reinforce empathy within groups. When individuals recognize that their emotional experiences can be acknowledged by others, trust within the group becomes more stable. Emotional signals therefore contribute to the social fabric that holds communities together. Tears represent one of the most visible elements within this system because they transform an internal emotional transition into a signal that others can observe and respond to. Understanding this connection between emotional complexity and visible expression brings us closer to the deeper question raised by the original curiosity about our species. If emotional tears reveal such a powerful intersection between biology, emotion, and social life, what does this unusual ability tell us about the way human beings experience and share their inner worlds? Emotional tears often appear at moments when the human mind moves from one internal state to another. A person may spend long periods holding emotion quietly within, maintaining composure while continuing daily responsibilities. Yet when the emotional pressure gradually reaches a certain threshold, the body may respond with visible changes. The eyes become moist, breathing patterns shift slightly, and the muscles of the face soften. These physical reactions do not necessarily represent weakness or loss of control. Instead, they reflect the close relationship between emotional processing in the brain and the systems that regulate the body's responses. The tear glands, which normally produce a small amount of fluid to keep the eyes protected and comfortable, can increase their activity when emotional signals travel through the nervous system. This increase results in the familiar experience of tears forming along the edge of the eyelid before slowly moving down the face. From the perspective of biology, this response may seem unusual. Many animals experience strong emotional states such as fear or excitement, yet their tear production rarely changes in response to those feelings. Humans, however, possess a combination of facial anatomy and social sensitivity that makes the appearance of tears particularly visible. The white sclera surrounding the iris provides a bright background where moisture becomes noticeable almost immediately. Because people naturally focus their attention on the eyes during interaction, even a small change in this area can attract attention. Observers may recognize the first sign of tears long before they fall from the eye. This visibility transforms an internal emotional transition into something that others can perceive. In social settings, the recognition of tears often leads to a change in the atmosphere of interaction. Conversations may pause or become quieter. People nearby may shift their posture toward the individual, signaling attention or concern. These reactions illustrate how emotional signals influence the rhythm of human relationships. Instead of remaining private, the emotional moment becomes part of the shared awareness of the group. The person experiencing the emotion may not need to explain everything that has occurred internally. The presence of tears communicates that something meaningful has taken place. Anthropologists often observe that human emotional expression functions as a bridge between individual experience and social response. When someone reveals vulnerability, the group receives an opportunity to respond with empathy. This response may appear through simple gestures such as sitting nearby, offering gentle reassurance, or allowing silence to remain for a few moments. These quiet interactions reinforce the sense that individuals are not entirely alone in their emotional lives. Over long stretches of human history, such patterns may have strengthened the bonds between people who depended on one another for survival. Emotional tears therefore represent more than a biological event. They reflect the deep connection between emotional awareness and the social environments in which humans evolved. The body transforms a private emotional shift into a visible signal that others can notice. In doing so, it creates the possibility for empathy, patience, and understanding to emerge within the group. This unusual ability suggests that human emotional life is closely intertwined with the presence of others. Tears reveal that certain experiences become too meaningful to remain entirely hidden inside the individual mind. When they appear, they invite recognition from those nearby, gently reminding the group that human existence has always involved sharing emotional moments as well as physical space across the long story of our species. When we look across human cultures, one pattern becomes clear. Emotional tears appear in many different societies, even among communities that developed far from one another across geography and history. People living in distant regions, speaking different languages and following different traditions, still recognize the meaning of tears in similar ways. The appearance of moisture in the eyes often signals that a moment of emotional importance has arrived. Someone nearby may be experiencing grief, relief, deep gratitude, or a quiet recognition of loss. Although the surrounding customs may vary, the response from others often shares common elements. Voices become softer, movements slow, and attention turns toward the individual who is experiencing the emotion. This pattern suggests that emotional tears belong to a deeply rooted aspect of human behavior, rather than to a single cultural tradition. Anthropologists who observe emotional expression in many societies often notice that tears appear during events that mark important transitions in life. Moments of farewell, reunion, mourning, or profound relief frequently involve visible emotional responses. In these situations, tears may arise not only from sadness but from the intensity of the experience itself. When people confront events that reshape their understanding of relationships, memory, or the passage of time, emotional signals may emerge naturally. The body reflects this emotional shift through visible changes in the eyes. Because the human face is central to social communication, these changes rarely remain unnoticed by others. Observers who see tears may instinctively adjust their behavior to reflect the emotional weight of the moment. Conversations pause, and the surrounding group may allow silence to remain for a short time. This quiet recognition creates space for emotional experience to unfold without pressure or interruption. In many societies, the presence of tears during meaningful events is not treated as something unusual or embarrassing. Instead, it is accepted as a natural response to powerful emotional circumstances. The group acknowledges the emotion not by drawing excessive attention to it, but by maintaining a respectful awareness of what is happening. This shared awareness helps individuals feel that their emotional experiences are understood within the community. Although customs surrounding emotional expression differ from one culture to another, the visibility of tears often carries a similar meaning. People recognize that when tears appear, the emotional experience has reached a point where words may no longer capture the depth of the feeling. Anthropologists sometimes describe these moments as emotional thresholds, where internal experience becomes visible to others. Tears mark the crossing of this threshold. They indicate that the emotional significance of the event has moved beyond quiet reflection and entered the shared awareness of the group. Over long periods of human history, the recurrence of such moments across cultures suggests that emotional tears are closely connected to the way humans experience relationships and memory. Life within human communities involves constant interaction with others across time. Individuals form bonds, share responsibilities, and remember events that shape their sense of belonging. When these bonds or memories become deeply meaningful, emotional responses may emerge naturally. Tears represent one of the ways the body expresses the intensity of these connections. Their appearance transforms a private emotional state into a visible signal that others can recognize and respect. Understanding this widespread pattern across cultures helps illuminate how emotional tears have become a recognizable feature of human life, linking personal experience with the shared emotional awareness that exists within communities across the world. Although emotional tears appear across many cultures, the ways people respond to them can reflect the particular traditions and values of each community. In some societies, visible emotion during moments of grief or reunion is openly acknowledged. Individuals may gather around the person experiencing the emotion, offering quiet presence or gentle gestures of support. In other cultures, emotional restraint may be encouraged in public settings, yet tears still appear in private spaces where trusted companions are present. These differences illustrate how cultural expectations shape the environment in which emotional expression unfolds. Despite these variations, the appearance of tears remains widely understood as a sign that a meaningful emotional experience has emerged. Anthropologists often observe that when tears appear, people rarely interpret them as random physical events. Instead, they are seen as signals connected to the emotional life of the individual. Even in cultures where emotional expression is modest or controlled, the presence of tears still carries significance. Observers recognize that something important is occurring internally, and they often adjust their behavior in subtle ways. Voices may become quieter, conversation may pause, and attention may shift toward the person whose emotional state has become visible. These responses reflect a shared human tendency to respond to vulnerability with attentiveness rather than indifference. The visibility of tears contributes to this response because they appear in the eyes, a place that people naturally watch during interaction. As moisture gathers along the eyelid, the reflective surface of the eye changes. The observer may notice this change quickly, even before tears move down the face. Because the signal appears in a region that already plays a central role in communication, it easily becomes part of the social interaction taking place. The observer does not need a detailed explanation to recognize that the emotional atmosphere of the moment has shifted. Cultural traditions sometimes shape how people interpret the meaning of tears within particular events. During ceremonies of remembrance or farewell, tears may be expected as part of acknowledging the importance of relationships and memory. In other situations, tears may appear unexpectedly during moments of relief, gratitude, or reconciliation. In each case, the visible signal indicates that the emotional experience has reached a level that words alone may not fully express. The surrounding community often responds through quiet acknowledgement rather than dramatic reaction. This shared recognition helps maintain the social balance within the group. Emotional moments are allowed to exist without being forced into immediate explanation. Over generations, repeated experiences like this may have reinforced the role of emotional signals within human social life. Children observe how adults respond to tears in different situations, learning that such moments carry meaning even when they are not discussed openly. As these patterns continue across time, the understanding of emotional tears becomes embedded within the cultural memory of the community. Each generation inherits not only the biological capacity to produce tears, but also the social awareness that allows those tears to be recognized and understood by others. This combination of biological response and cultural interpretation helps explain why emotional tears remain a familiar and meaningful aspect of human experience across the world. Even when traditions differ, the appearance of tears continues to signal that the inner emotional life of an individual has become visible within the shared environment of the group. Across the wide range of human societies, emotional tears appear in circumstances that share a common theme. They often emerge during moments when relationships, memory, or shared experience become deeply meaningful. A farewell between companions, the quiet recognition of a long journey coming to an end, or the unexpected return of someone thought to be lost, can all produce emotional responses that exceed what ordinary speech can easily express. In such moments, tears sometimes appear without warning. The eyes grow moist, breathing changes slightly, and the surrounding group becomes aware that something important is unfolding within the emotional life of the individual. These events illustrate how emotional tears often accompany transitions in human experience. Life within human communities is shaped by continual movement through stages of connection and change. People form relationships, face separations, encounter uncertainty, and occasionally rediscover bonds that seemed fragile or distant. Each of these moments carries emotional weight because they affect the social fabric that connects individuals to one another. Tears may emerge when this emotional weight becomes visible. Their appearance indicates that the internal experience has crossed a threshold where feeling becomes observable. Anthropologists sometimes describe such thresholds as points where private emotion becomes shared awareness. The group does not necessarily need to know every detail of the situation. The visible signal itself communicates that something meaningful has taken place. Observers who notice tears often respond through small adjustments in behavior. Conversation may slow or pause entirely, voices may become softer, and individuals may remain nearby without speaking. These responses demonstrate how emotional signals shape the rhythm of interaction within a community. The moment becomes quieter and more attentive, allowing the emotional experience to unfold without interruption. This shared attentiveness reflects a deeply rooted feature of human social life. People rarely experience the most meaningful events of their lives completely alone. Instead, those events often occur in the presence of others who share the same environment and relationships. Tears help transform these moments from private feeling into visible experience. When someone becomes tearful, the emotional moment expands beyond the individual and enters the awareness of the group. The surrounding people do not necessarily attempt to explain or resolve the emotion immediately. Instead, they acknowledge that something significant has occurred. Over many generations, patterns like this may have helped reinforce the importance of emotional awareness within human communities. Individuals learned to recognize when a companion was experiencing a powerful emotional moment and to respond with patience rather than confusion or dismissal. This recognition may have strengthened the sense of connection between people who depended on one another in uncertain environments. Emotional tears, therefore, represent more than a simple bodily reaction. They reveal the deep link between emotional life and the social world in which humans exist. The body produces tears in response to internal emotional shifts, but those tears become meaningful because others can see them and respond. In this way, emotional expression becomes part of the shared experience of human communities. Across cultures and across time, tears continue to mark the moments when internal feeling becomes visible, inviting the quiet presence and understanding of others who share the same human story. Across the long arc of human history, emotional expression has remained closely connected to the presence of other people. Humans rarely exist entirely alone. Even in the earliest periods of our species, individuals lived within small groups where daily survival depended on cooperation and shared awareness. These groups formed the foundation of human social life. Within them, people learned to recognize subtle signals in one another's behavior, signals that revealed changes in attention, intention, and emotional state. The human face gradually became one of the most important places where these signals appeared. The movement of facial muscles, the direction of the gaze, and the tone of the voice all helped convey information that words alone could not fully describe. Among these signals, tears hold a unique position because they transform an internal emotional experience into something visible to others. When tears appear, the eyes become moist and reflective, creating a visual change that observers quickly notice. This change does not explain the entire emotional experience, yet it signals that something significant is unfolding within the person. The surrounding individuals often respond by adjusting their behavior. Conversations may pause, voices may soften, and attention may shift toward the person whose emotional state has become visible. These responses reflect the human tendency to recognize vulnerability and respond with quiet awareness. Over many generations, interactions like this may have reinforced the role of emotional expression in maintaining the bonds between individuals. Human communities have always depended on relationships that extend across time. Parents care for children, companions support one another during hardship, and groups work together to face uncertain environments. Within such relationships, emotional awareness helps individuals understand when someone nearby is experiencing distress, relief, or deep reflection. Tears may function as one of the signals that make these moments visible. They allow internal emotional experience to enter the shared awareness of the group without the need for elaborate explanation. This transformation from private feeling to visible signal may help explain why emotional tears appear so consistently across human societies. The biological systems that produce tears connect closely with the emotional centers of the brain. When emotional intensity grows strong enough, the tear glands respond by releasing fluid that gathers in the eyes. Because the eyes already serve as a focal point of human attention, the appearance of tears becomes difficult to overlook. The observer recognizes that a meaningful emotional moment has emerged. Anthropologists often describe human emotional expression as part of a broader system that allows individuals to remain connected with one another. Emotional signals guide empathy, patience, and understanding within social interaction. Tears represent one of the most visible elements of this system because they appear directly in the place where human attention naturally rests. Their presence invites a pause within ordinary activity, allowing people to acknowledge the emotional significance of the moment. Through countless encounters across generations, this quiet exchange between emotional expression and social recognition has become deeply embedded in human life. Tears reveal that the inner emotional world of a person does not exist entirely in isolation. Instead, it often becomes part of the shared experience of those who live together. This unusual ability suggests that human emotional life has always been shaped by the presence of others and by the relationships that connect individuals across the long story of our species. When we consider the long journey of our species, emotional tears appear as one small detail within a much larger story about how humans learned to live together. The human body did not evolve in isolation from social life. Instead, many of its most distinctive features emerged within environments where individuals depended heavily on cooperation and shared awareness. Over thousands of generations, humans formed small communities where survival required attention not only to the landscape and the seasons, but also to the emotional states of companions. Recognizing when another person felt distress, exhaustion, or quiet relief could influence how the group responded to challenges. Emotional signals therefore became part of the subtle communication system that allowed individuals to remain connected with one another. Tears may represent one expression within this system. They appear when emotional experience reaches a level that becomes difficult to contain entirely within the individual. The tear glands respond to signals from emotional centers in the brain, producing moisture that gathers in the eyes and gradually becomes visible to others. This biological response transforms a private internal state into a signal that can be observed. The observer may not know every detail of the situation, yet the presence of tears indicates that something meaningful has occurred within the emotional life of the person. Because human attention naturally focuses on the eyes during interaction, this signal rarely remains hidden for long. The surrounding individuals often notice the change and adjust their behavior accordingly. Conversations may slow, voices may soften, and the atmosphere of the moment may become quieter. These reactions illustrate how emotional signals shape the rhythm of human interaction. Instead of forcing emotions to remain invisible, tears allow them to enter the shared awareness of the group. Anthropologists frequently note that human societies maintain stability not only through rules or traditions, but also through emotional understanding between individuals. When people recognize that their emotional experiences will be acknowledged rather than ignored, trust within the group becomes stronger. Tears may contribute to this process by signaling moments when empathy or patience may be needed. The signal does not demand immediate solutions. Instead, it invites attention and quiet recognition from others who share the same social environment. Over long stretches of time, interactions like this may have reinforced the emotional bonds that allowed human communities to endure. The ability to respond to visible emotional signals could help individuals remain sensitive to the needs of companions. In environments where survival depended on cooperation, such sensitivity may have helped maintain harmony within the group. Emotional tears, therefore, reveal something important about human nature. They show that the internal life of the mind is closely connected to the presence of others. A person's feelings do not remain entirely hidden behind the surface of the body. At certain moments, they become visible in the eyes, inviting recognition from those nearby. This quiet transformation from private emotion to shared awareness reflects the deep relationship between human biology and the social environments in which our species evolved. Across the immense span of human history, countless generations have lived, struggled, adapted, and eventually disappeared into the quiet background of time. Most of those lives were never written down. They left no books and very few artifacts that reveal what people felt in their private moments. Yet certain aspects of human experience have remained remarkably consistent across these vast stretches of time. One of them is the presence of emotion that becomes visible in the eyes. Tears appear in the lives of people separated by thousands of years, different landscapes, and entirely different cultures. A parent seeing a child after a long absence, companions mourning the loss of someone they shared their lives with, or a person quietly recognizing that a long hardship has finally passed. In moments like these, something internal crosses a threshold where words become insufficient. The body responds through a simple physical act. Moisture gathers in the eyes and slowly becomes visible. What makes this response unusual is not only that it exists, but that others immediately understand its meaning. A person does not need to explain that they are overwhelmed. The signal appears in a place where human attention naturally rests. Another person sees the change in the eye and recognizes that something important is happening inside the mind of the individual. In that instant, the emotional moment becomes shared rather than solitary. Over countless generations, this quiet exchange has played out again and again. Someone feels something deeply. The eyes fill with tears. Another person notices and responds, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes simply by remaining nearby. These responses may appear small, yet they reveal something fundamental about the human condition. Human beings did not evolve merely as individuals competing against the environment. Our species survived because groups learned to remain connected through awareness of one another. Emotional signals became part of that awareness. Tears may represent one of the clearest expressions of this connection. They show that certain experiences inside the mind cannot remain entirely hidden. Instead, they move outward into the shared space between people. In this way, emotional tears reflect the deeper nature of human life. They reveal that the boundaries between individual experience and social understanding are often thin. What begins as a private feeling inside one mind can quietly enter the awareness of others who share the same moment. The eyes become the place where this transition occurs. For most animals, survival depends primarily on physical signals such as movement, sound, or scent. Humans, however, developed a world where attention to subtle emotional cues became equally important. The ability to recognize when another person is experiencing grief, relief, gratitude, or quiet reflection allows relationships to remain stable through changing circumstances. Tears are not necessary for survival in the immediate sense, yet they may help preserve something equally important. They help maintain the invisible threads of empathy and recognition that connect individuals to one another. When we step back and consider this unusual ability, the question that began this journey still lingers gently in the background. Humans are not the only creatures capable of feeling emotion. Many animals experience fear, attachment, and distress. Yet the human eye alone regularly reveals those feelings through tears that others can see and understand. Perhaps the answer lies not only in biology but also in the unique way humans exist within shared emotional worlds. Our species did not simply evolve to survive in the physical landscape of Earth. We also evolved within landscapes of memory, relationships, and shared experience. Tears may be one of the quiet signals that remind us of this deeper environment. They appear when feeling becomes too meaningful to remain entirely private, and when they do, they invite others to notice that moment, if only briefly, and share it.